No. I forget why. I asked him at the parade, and I'm like, "Are you going?" And he said no, and I forget why.
If you've actually gone up to like West Point,
Yeah, I don't know why. I thought for sure he would.
yeah,
I would think it would be a lot more fun to go to West Point than it would be to Gillette Stadium.
kind of bizarre when I heard they were playing it down here, but you never underestimate Bob Kraft. You know,
Well, it's actually kind of good too, though, in a way, for people if they don't really have the ability to travel, right? I mean, there's a lot of between, I would say, northeast and southeast. You get a lot of veterans.
it's like, I thought it just alternated back and forth between Navy and Army. That's what I thought.
When they say that the immigrants took all the hotel rooms that were supposed to be earmarked for the Army migrants. Oh, migrants, excuse me. I said immigrants. Yeah, migrants. Excuse me.
No, yeah, that was a problem. I don't know what they did.
Mo is here for several items.
Okay.
Dispersed
Can we come put them together?
throughout.
All right, so we'll try to get him on as soon as we can then.
Because I think he staying over here, but obviously he'll be here.
Oh, he's for that? Okay.
He won't be here if there's any questions for that. He won't be here for this one. And then the awards for the self bids, what we kind of grouped last
Didn't we, as I say, didn't we do that last week?
what we did because Medfield only gets ourselves. We only did that.
Onion grass. If you pull up the bulbs.
Onion grass, okay.
Well, you know what they call it onion grass? Like I get little clumps of onion grass throughout my yard. That's not from me. That's from the people who own it
And
before
then
me.
actually, it'll be ready somewhere in the middle of July.
talking to me?
See Mark come in? Hey, Mark, how are you? Good, thanks.
So who's the table for? They're not close enough to play cards with.
School committee, because we're doing
The vote, okay.
the vote. If we do the vote, that's what I'll be intrigued about.
I've had so many meetings with the school committee in the past 2 weeks. 3 Zooms, a couple calls.
Regarding this whole election?
Yeah.
So are they
Some of
looking,
us are more willing to wing it than they are.
well, so they do want to do an election just for a 2-month stint?
They're statutorily required to, is what I heard today. Their attorney says they have to.
So they have to,
Their attorney.
even though the election's 2.5 months away? I don't think they have to. They could choose to let it go.
And this is the state regulation, it's something that's not in the statute.
No, I didn't work
Oh,
with
well, their attorney says that we have to, so.
Well, the courts go pretty slow. By the time anything got anywhere, we have an election, so that solves that problem.
Hi, Gus.
Hello, Pete. Sorry to be late.
No problem, you're not late yet.
Huh?
You're not late yet according to the
that's,
clock. Oh, that's the wrong. Oh, you are late.
6:05
I'll go
to
with
be
that.
exact.
Go with that.
Today's
Well,
6:05.
Well, let me know when you're ready to go and we'll start.
no, and she can go ahead and tell you. Let me just get it. Hold on. Let's start. I think I can handle this on.
The stroll was uneventful, so that's good. No crazy.
They don't know we're late.
We were gonna go, but it was raining and we didn't wanna truck the kids along.
No, I don't plan. You know, thank goodness it didn't really pour. It like spit throughout the night.
Was it kinda like Medfield Day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it didn't. I mean, it wasn't as crowded as previous years, and I can just attest to that by driving up Pleasant Street. Normally, you can't even. By the time you get to Oak and Pleasant, it's bumper to bumper. Cars are. You could almost go all the way to the bank. So it didn't. So I think people were able to park closer to downtown and not have to deal with side streets.
Frank, do you want to let us into the meeting?
He's doing that right now.
Thank you. Aren't you fast? I have to turn off my sound, and then the next time I go to use this for something else, my sound won't be there.
Next morning after one of our meetings, I always sit there and wonder why I don't hear anything for a while. Alright, I think. Eileen is prominently featured on the screen.
Yeah, catch up, guys. Come on.
Is there, just for when your part comes up, what name should I be looking out for on the Zoom? Okay, thank you.
That's on. Yep.
Okay, so just John?
Or
Sean, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
here. There we go, join as panelist. Got it. There, start the video. Works. Yes, it does. Good.
You set to go then, Gus?
All set. Yep.
Eileen?
I am ready when you are.
Medfield TV, are we ready to go? All right, we're rolling. Welcome, everybody. This is the Select Board meeting for December 5, 2023, our new 6 p.m. starting time. Just remember to book that for the future, that we're starting at 6 going forward. We're disclosing that we are video recording, as we always tell you, and we take a moment to appreciate troops serving around the globe. Thank you. We have an appointment first with Georgia Kalibas, Treasurer Collector, to appoint Kelly and Ryan Associates as Deputy Tax Collector.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am here this evening to get your authorization as the appointing board to appoint a new deputy tax collector. The town of Medfield was quite fortunate to have a deputy tax collector for at least 32 years. I worked with RDT Associates for 32 years, and unfortunately, Mr. Tartaglia passed away 4 weeks ago, and the company has ceased. So we have transitioned.
Can we
to our-
interrupt real quick, you guys? They're having an issue with audio. So if you can just, because I know people want to hear you, just check to see, because we've gotten comments from people, microphones muted or something's going on with audio. Are we good?
That's okay.
Okay.
You want me to start over?
Yes, please start
Okay.
over, sorry.
So I am here this evening to get your authorization as my appointing board to appoint a new deputy tax collector for the town of Medfield. Previously, the deputy tax collector was appointed by the tax collector. His name was Richard Tartaglia, and he had his business called RDT Associates. Richard passed away 4 weeks ago, and his company has unfortunately now closed. We have been working with Kelly and Ryan, who services about 175 communities in the state of Massachusetts, and offers deputy tax collecting services. Per Chapter 60 of Mass General Laws, Chapter 92, we are authorized to appoint, or I am authorized to appoint a new deputy tax collector. So I am here to get your authorization to do so.
Questions, Gus?
Could you just explain what a deputy tax collector does?
Absolutely. Most importantly, the deputy tax collector does not cost the town of Medfield anything. Unfortunately, the deputy tax collector makes his fees off of delinquent taxpayers. So a deputy tax collector for the town of Medfield is appointed in order to collect past due excise tax bills. So original bill goes out, 30 days later it goes on demand, 14 days later it goes on warrant, and then 2 weeks later you get marked at the registry and you can't renew a license or a registration. So that is where your deputy tax collector comes in to mark the bills at the registry and to ensure the proper collection for the town. So his fees are $29 per bill. So it does not cost the town anything. He will be printing our bills and mailing our bills, just as Richard used to do before, at no cost to the town.
All of our bills, Georgia?
Our excise tax bills.
All the excise
Yes, this
tax
is just for excise tax.
Okay.
And I've had great recommendations from other towns. So far, it's been seamless. We're in a test database right now, and we should be going live on Thursday.
He's not like, you know, that TV show where the repo man comes and gets the car. He doesn't do that. It's all just the legal paperwork. Oh,
Yeah.
or he does.
It's all legal paperwork, yes.
Oh, just the legal paperwork.
Yes.
Not, okay. Okay.
Where are they based out of again?
Hopedale.
Hopedale, okay. And if there's a dispute, if somebody says my excise tax bill is too high or too low, that's not for him to take care of
That has
it.
nothing to do with,
Okay.
the excise tax bills are produced by the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
So valuation issues fall under the RMV. The deputy tax collector collects on behalf of myself once the bill gets marked at the Registry of Motor Vehicles, because as a tax collector, I don't have access to the registry. The deputy tax collector has access to the registry. I don't.
Okay, just want to make sure if somebody says.
Sure,
that
absolutely,
this-
yeah.
Okay, all right, sounds
And
good. to me.
14,000 bills go out in February.
And how, of the percentage of bills that go out, how many are late or not paid or?
Usually, 14,000 bills get sent out in February. That's the largest commitment. And by the time we get to demand, which is the second notice, it's about 3,000 bills.
Wow.
Really?
It's not
More
too bad.
cars than people. Interesting.
Yes, the average household has 4.
That includes
vehicle.
trailers, though, because I get one for my boat trailer.
Yes.
$5 a year.
Yes. Those $5 bills are tough once they get on warrant. Yes, unfortunately. So if you have no other questions,
No
I
more
will-
questions.
Okay, that's great.
Eileen, do you have a motion
All
for
right,
us?
so I motion to approve Georgia Clovis treasurer collector to appoint Kelly and Ryan Associates as deputy tax collector.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Okay, great. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Georgia.
Have a good meeting.
Appreciate it. Next, we have the Dog Control Bylaw Committee presentation on recommendation for possible bylaw. And no one's here to do that, or are they online?
Mark, are you being flagged for that, or?
So I came here to support Jill, who I believe was supposed to be.
All right, so we'll hold that then.
Get messed up with the time.
Yeah, I wonder if some people may not be aware that we shifted from 7 to 6, so.
So,
And Alex is here, so we can
tax
jump on that.
classification hearings at 7, so we can't do that. So we'll go to Alex Stevens. Alex, thank you for coming.
Benefactor
Thanks
of
for
being
being
here.
our fill-in. Plus, you have good materials. Thank you for those.
All right. Thank you for having me back. Do I need to state who I am and where I'm from and all that?
Yes, please.
Alex Stevens from 86 Phillips Street in Medfield. I was here back in April. If we can just start the.
There we go. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so I came back in April. We can go to the next one there. To talk about the bridges that lead out of the pond on our property, and those bridges go over the two outlets of Millbrook or Minebrook, depending upon what map you look at. The concern that I brought up then was based on the failure of both of those bridges over the past several years. The wooden bridge that everyone's familiar with by the waterfall there that got rebuilt in 2016, and then this past spring, the granite culvert that collapsed into the stream. And since then, we had in that meeting, I asked if we could reinstate what was a 3-ton weight limit on that bridge because of the damage that was being done to the bridges and the roadway, and my concern about the ability to discharge water during a high water event. So the consensus was at that time that there was not a historical documentation that showed why how that 3-ton weight limit sign that I had the picture of, where it came from and who installed it and what the scientific basis of it was. So aside from the water management, there's also damages to the bridge and also safety issues. So if we could go to the next slide. So this is an example of the upper left there is I have a pond monitoring system that keeps track of the level in our pond. So that graph there where it goes out of the white zone, which is the sort of my safe zone, up into the red, it happened overnight on April 10th. And what I figured out had happened is that the beaver dam at Fork Factory Brook had either been tampered with or dismantled. So all that water that's between Hartford Street and Main Street sent down, showed up in my yard that morning. So when the water gets that high, we have that old dam that I need to release the water. And so the pictures on the right show examples of what that looks like. So that sluiceway fills up pretty much up to the top of those granite stones. And in 2016, you can see the bridge on the right picture there. All the granite, foundation of that bridge toppled over into the stream. So that makes it difficult to send the water out without flooding over the tops of the sluiceway there. If we can go to the next, you can see pictures of the water moving. I forgot that I included the action videos.
Yeah, you have such good materials.
Thank you. So one of the things that came up in the meeting in April was that we couldn't just sort of arbitrarily put a weight limit on the bridge without doing an engineering study, and that there was a requirement, I guess, for vehicular access to other residences in town that are on the far side of that bridge from the main part of town. It's just, by my count, there were 26 houses that are not accessible without going across either the bridge at our house or the bridge on Elm Street that does have the 3-ton weight limit already. And I mean, I definitely see people coming through that are like, the Amazon delivery guy or the UPS guy that are going to our neighbor's house, or their landscaping guys. So that's fine. But if we, I had set up a camera, to catch trespassers earlier, which has been resolved. But I put the camera there to look and see what vehicles were going through. And sort of got a collection of what goes by on a day-to-day basis. And what happens is when large trucks go by, the road is so narrow and the shoulders are kind of eroded that they drive right down the middle of the street. So if we go to the next one, I think I have an action video of, these are just pictures of the. So I will say thanks to Maurice and his crew. They fixed the right picture there where the pavement was deteriorated and the metal plate that's shown there was coming loose. But the roadway is pretty narrow, and if you go to the next one, what ends up happening if you play that video is that the car pulls into the driveway while the runner's going by, and then the landscaping trucks go by, and there's not enough room for the people, the trucks, and the car to all go by at once. So a lot of times they end up driving on the lawn or driving into the driveway. But and that picture was just a landscaping truck, which I'm assuming was going to somebody else's house. But on the next slide,
Yeah, Coca-Cola and Polar? No.
we got those guys. I don't know if they're coming from Shaw's or Brothers or wherever they're going, but you can see they're going right down the middle of the street in both cases, and that's not exclusive to those guys. So the next one is other things that have come by. We got the 10-wheeler dump truck towing an excavator, 10-wheeler full of gravel, a well drilling rig. So that's kind of I think it's mostly because there's people doing cut-throughs of, Waze says, oh, the best way to get from Medfield to Walpole or wherever they're going is to take this road, and it doesn't consider the narrowness of the road or those bridges. So the next one, this is sort of what I'm here asking for help with is, my main concern is I don't want to be in another situation where the culvert or the bridge needs to be repaired, specifically if it would make it difficult for me to maintain the pond level. But there's also the safety issues of like I showed in the pictures and videos of the road being too narrow or not wide enough for cars and people and bicycles and dog walkers to go by. And I think, I don't know any of the procedural or legal requirements to do this, but I was thinking if the engineering study was required to do a weight limit assessment, if it was possible to do something like just a local delivery only or no through truck kind of signage for that area, or any other suggestions just for how to both keep the bridges in operations and preserve that town paid infrastructure, and also make it not as dangerous for people going by. So that's my ask for help.
Alec, can you maybe, before we go on to the questions, and Mr. Sorrell's got a comment in a moment, but maybe can you explain to people how actively you monitor the water level in that pond?
Yeah, so the little graph that I showed is well, so I back up a second. For work, I do data monitoring for buildings, so I know about this kind of stuff. So I installed one of the old units from our work, and it just has a sensor that measures the pond level. And whenever the pond level goes above, getting close to the threshold of the top of the dam, it sends me a text. So if it's raining, I look at it to see where it is. If I get a text, I go out and make adjustments. So that whole system was an improvement over me going out there in the middle of the night during a rainstorm with a flashlight and a ruler or whatever to see how much freeboard or whatever you want to call it, how much excess capacity I had. But I make adjustments pretty much every time there's a heavy rainstorm or, like I said, the Beaver Dam dismantling that happened back in April. If there's a heavy snow melt or rain while there's snow on the ground, that'll cause the snow to melt. Anytime we get more than like a half an inch of rain, I have to do something.
Yep, so it's active.
And the reason the dam was designed that way is because it was an old mill, and the mill they wanted to capture the water and use it to run the sawmill and the grist mill that used to be there. So it's not a sort of set it and forget it dam where it just has an infinite capacity spillway. So it's I guess that's why I was the only one who made an offer on the house. I don't know.
We're fortunate to have you as the keeper of the sluiceways.
Keeper of the dam, yeah.
Mr. Sorrell.
So, Mo and or the police chief could probably speak to this better than I, but generally, when you're talking about either prohibiting or restricting, truck traffic or weight limits, whatever, Mass DOT, has oversight, and you have to meet their requirements.
Okay. So Mo, we'll hear from you in a second, but let me just check with my colleagues and see if they have any questions first. Mo? Mo. Gus, sorry.
So Alec, when I go through this, the way, I may not be looking, only actually, let me back up one. The dam that you have there, if the water level rises, you take action. Is there a reason why you don't just leave the dam at a spill level, that if it does rise, I'm guessing when it rises, you drop the level that the water can go over the dam? What, is there a reason
there's-
why?
so
Maybe
there's-
a dumb question. I don't
There's
know.
5 different ways I can get water out of the pond.
Okay.
I guess 6 if you count leaking. But there's 3 16-inch diameter valves that I can manually open.
Mhm.
There's one, I call it well, I probably shouldn't say what I call it, but the oh my goodness valve, which drains from the bottom and can let a lot of water out. And then there's the spillway that makes the little waterfall that people look at and take pictures of from the bridge. And so that spillway, if there's not a rain event, that manages the level.
Okay.
But it's only about 35 inches wide, and
Okay.
when there's a large inflow of water, that's not enough to discharge all the water. So if someone was designing, like for example, down at Stony Brook in Norfolk, they have a dam where the spillway is, I don't know, 30 feet wide versus
Okay.
3 feet wide. So the 3-foot wide spillway is only really enough during periods of no rain or no upstream events like the
Okay.
Beaver Dam.
All right, that actually gives me an answer to my comment. When I read through your materials and thought back about when you came to us back in the spring, the way I looked at the information you provided, I said, well, actually, there are 4 issues here. And one of them I think you just addressed. One of the issues I thought I saw in your materials was the issue of that sluiceway not being capable of handling the volume of water that could come through there. So it was a design issue. But I guess
To be clear, though, it's not the sluiceway under the road so far for as long as I've been there has not been the issue.
Okay.
Except for when the stones all collapsed into it,
Right,
and that was when the bridge was failing.
So take that one off the list.
So it's really if the roadway abutments to the river collapse into the river, which happened on once in 2016 and once this past year.
Yep.
That's what. And then there's a rain event. Then I don't know where the water would go. Would flood Phillip Street or fill my front yard with water or what? I'm not sure.
Okay. So at any rate, I was sitting there saying, so are we talking about a complete redesign of how the water flows? And the answer is no.
No.
So that's helpful. From there, I said, well, and then I guess I combined 2 issues. One is the issues you're talking about if there's enough water, there's literally part of the abutment of the bridge could potentially collapse or has collapsed into the water in the past, which to me was a question around fundamental bridge design. Is there something wrong with the way the bridge is designed to where that can happen? Then the third issue for me was the safety issue, which is the bridge designed to handle the weight of the trucks that are going over it? That's just pure safety.
Right. So from what I was told, and Mo, you could chime in, is that when the new bridge that was the wooden bridge that was built in 2016 was designed for whatever the prevailing weight limit of the roads is. Like it's not there's not a limitation to that bridge, but there's the one that collapsed in this past spring is circa 18 whatever. It's just sort of like granite posts laid on their side like a miniature Stonehenge that the road is paved on top of that. So that's what collapsed into the water this spring.
But that one's been rebuilt.
It was with the same. I mean,
Rebuilt or repaired?
it was
Built. It had.
Well, there was one piece of granite was installed to replace the one that had broken in half. So there's maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 long sections of granite like a fence post laid on its side that go across, and then the road is on top of that. One of those is what cracked.
Right.
When that fell into the water, the substrate of the road underneath, the gravel and dirt and whatever, all went into the water, and then the roadway It was just the asphalt hanging in midair, and it was like Wile E. Coyote, like help, and it all just made a sinkhole.
So Mo, this is probably a question for you. What I'm assuming, maybe it's a bad assumption, is that I believe that was a state project, right? We may have done it, but that was a
The first-
state project, I think. And my only question is, when the state design, when that bridge was repaired, somebody did the design for the repair.
Yep.
I would assume that design was designed for a certain weight limit.
So in 2016, when I came, the bridge had some issues. We went for a small municipal grant from the state. They gave us money to have that rebuilt. So the new bridge there, the state ran that project and built that bridge to the standards of today that would take, they don't have any restrictions on that bridge. So there shouldn't be any issues with the bridge itself for vehicular traffic going over, whether it's large trucks or smaller vehicles. So
Okay, that's where I was headed to. I was thinking that there was a weight limit.
not
I don't
with this,
think, I
not
don't
with this
think
new
you just
bridge.
use a weight limit as a means of controlling traffic. A weight limit has a technical connection to the design of the bridge that it's being applied to, right?
Right.
Sure.
So as far as the culvert that the water passes through,
Yep.
there was a granite stone, the capstone, if you will, that cracked and fell into the sluiceway. So we went out there and we replaced that with another piece of granite to match that. Now that's been there for, hundreds of years or 100 years anyways. So for it to collapse or for another one to collapse, that's unpredictable of when or if it would ever do that again. But both areas have been repaired, so it's a matter of whether or not you want to pursue a load limit in that area, if that's a concern. But we're pretty confident that right now everything is working as it should.
I guess what I'm saying is, and I don't know, so I'm just I'm using intuition, which may not be relevant. What I'm getting at is, if the bridge was designed perhaps for no meaningful load limit at all, I'm assuming that we couldn't just decide we're going to make up a load limit that's more around the kinds of vehicles we want to go over the bridge, and we make it look like it's a load limit on the bridge, but we're really doing it to restrict what can go over the bridge because we don't want certain traffic on the road. I'm assuming that's not actually how you can use weight limits on bridges.
No.
So where I was going with this originally was, if the bridge was designed for 3 tons, then I would say, well, without doubt, we should put even if there's no historic proof, we ought to be able to figure out what the design limit was for the bridge that's actually there that was just put in. And if that design limit was 3 tons, then who cares what the history was?
Do
Just
we know
put the
what the
sign up.
tonnage limit on the
There was
gravel
no
bridge?
restrictions on that
There's not.
bridge, so there's no restrictions on that bridge.
So that there's no weight limit?
There's no
at
weight
all.
limit on that
But to
bridge.
Do you know from a safety standpoint what the proper weight limit is?
I do not.
Yeah.
But to be clear, there's 2 bridges, one after, like they're within 50 feet of each other, 100 feet of each other. The one is the one that has no weight limit on it that was built in 2016, and the other is the 1800s
Yeah.
granite that collapsed in this past spring.
Yep.
And I mean, to your point, Mo, who knows? It could, you could have 1 million trucks go over it and nothing would happen, or it could be broken right now. I'll find out when I get home. But I mean, I think from an engineering perspective, that's probably the weaker link. Although in the picture that I had there before of the guys were out there this week in advance of the Angel Run patching the asphalt there, that's only been in the past 5 years that the asphalt around the bridge is already was already kind of deteriorating there. And then also on
Around which bridge?
the new one, the
new one.
2016 wooden bridge.
Yeah, that's the picture that you had then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
So what's behind my comments is, I'm looking for a legitimate, if we're going to do something, I'm looking for the legitimate rationale to justify doing it. And that's really where I'm coming from. And I'm not trying to fight a problem. I'm just trying to figure out if there is a legitimate rationale that would be recognized and accepted that would allow us to do anything like that. And I think right now I'm hearing no.
well, I mean, I think you'd have to have somebody with a structural engineering degree say, okay, this granite structure, the column or the capstones are 6 inches by 8 inches.
Yeah, what I'm
and
suggesting is that when the state designed this bridge that just went in, I assume there was a
So
structural
the,
engineer
so
that
I think
figured it out.
there's two different things.
there's
There's
two bridges there,
there's a
though.
bridge and a culvert.
Yeah.
So the bridge that we replaced in 2000, it's actually, I believe 2017 when we finished, was done by the state, and that has no restrictions on it. The culvert that Alec is referring to is the water goes through that culvert from his pond when he releases the water.
Right.
Okay.
That's under the bridge.
No,
No,
it's
that's
past the
under
bridge.
the road. That's under the road. It's a culvert under the road.
Can I do one quick? So Gus, if you're going down Elm Street and you're heading towards Phillip,
Mhm.
you've gone over the wooden bridge and you start to go to the left a little, and then there's that second bridge that's just kind of into the road. You don't see it as a bridge.
Mo's
but-
calling it a culvert, but Alex is calling it a second bridge, so it's the 1800s granite.
Right.
So,
Okay,
I mean,
I have to go back
somebody can
over.
figure out what the weight limit of that is, I'm sure. Eileen, do you have any questions before we go to then, Mark?
I do, because that's like one of my running routes, right? So I do know it very well. And when I just saw the Coca-Cola truck and the Polo truck, like that's scary, beyond scary. Because then once they go over that bridge, just a sharp right.
Yeah.
The idea of anybody, whether it be a young driver, a regular driver, somebody on a bike or a runner, not anticipating a Coca-Cola 18-wheeler on a road. I mean, this goes back to the conversation we had at a selectmen's meeting probably 9 months ago or so when we talked about Causeway, and what Causeway was originally designed for was horse and buggy, which I believe your road was. And then over time, people have built homes. It's become a cut-through street coming from Walpole into Medfield, and I'm sure that Google Maps and Waze has encouraged that more than back 20 years ago. So what I'm thinking, though, is I know later in this meeting, we're going to talk about the truck exclusion for Curve Street. And so my question goes to you now, Mo. Some of the guidance that Beta provided to us based on the study they did on truck exclusion for Curve, I start to apply to what I'm hearing here. Is that similar?
So are you looking at a truck exclusion, or are you looking at a load limit?
Well, I think it's one.
We're
Well,
looking
is it
for
one
a-
of
Both,
the?
they're both totally two different studies.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're-
good. All right. So if we were to say a load limit,
Yep.
and then they came and they saw that yes, there's this great multi-million-dollar bridge that was installed and developed in 2017, but it's right next to an 1800 stone bridge that was never designed to have Coca-Cola and Polar go back to back over the road, gosh knows how many times a week or a month, let alone a year. That, yeah, I mean, that to me is well worth the investment, because we shouldn't have trucks going down that road. That road was never designed for what you just shared with us.
So I think, Mo, my answer would be, we're looking for a solution, whatever that solution is, and we don't have the expertise to do it. but
I think if
maybe
you-
that's the sort of thing you could look into
I
for us
could-
and get
I could look
back to
into.
us with.
Yep.
Because it doesn't make any sense to me, because that, an 18-wheeler Coca-Cola truck is not delivering to the houses, the 26 houses.
one of my neighbors could have a bad Coca-Cola habit.
You have heck of a parties in your neighborhood, that's all I can say. So, Mr. Sorrell?
Yeah, so I think you need to look at the big picture, because DOT, in my experience, really pushes back when there's any attempt to restrict free traffic. And if you focus on the older bridge, you're liable to get yourself in a position where they just tell you to upgrade the bridge. So you're gonna look at the big picture, that it's a narrow country road that was never intended as a through road. There are, in proximity, numbered highways, let alone through roads that could be used, and make the argument on that basis, the big picture.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you and Mo can consult and come up with a solution for us. Maybe we make it into a toll road so that
Yeah.
the ways,
Well-
I'm going to
allows
install a
people to
covered
avoid it.
bridge, and then it
Well,
won't.
I've got another question, Alec, just to be
But
sure
small
what,
trucks, they go right through.
what your intent is. That I have a hard time. I saw the two pictures of the semis, and I'm sitting there. If I were a semi truck driver, I wouldn't voluntarily choose to go down that road
Sometimes they
unless I
get cold
had,
feet.
unless I
They-
was
they
leaving
back up.
Brothers and I was going somewhere in Walpole that would make it sense, because I wouldn't want to be on that
How
road.
about near the Stop and Shop in Walpole?
It may be, but my point is, I'm wondering how many semis choose to go down that road, because I sure as heck wouldn't. The real question I had, though, was when we talk about excluding trucks, it's one thing to say no Coca-Cola trucks, no Polar trucks.
It's a weight, yeah.
It's another thing to say no trucks that are like that, because the other pictures you had of the dump truck, the well truck, the other thing there that had the roller and that looks like probably a blacktop, driveway company. I just want to make sure what you're asking for. I'm assuming the intention here is not to restrict all trucks, including trucks that people might bring in to do work on their yard,
Or to move
to
a house.
include landscaping trucks. Because I can tell you, the picture you showed of the landscaping truck there, you can be in that spot in front of the Peak House on 109. With the landscapers, they park and they just park out there, and you lose one lane.
Right. I mean,
And so it's not exclusive to there. So my question is, are you saying get rid of all that stuff?
We're just looking for a solution, Gus, and we don't have it here
Well, but I
tonight.
wanna-
So what we're asking is
but I-
for
can I
Mo
finish,
and
Pete?
Mark to come back with a solution.
Can I finish my question, Pete?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
But hurry up, please.
Well, I'm trying to. So the question is, what are you asking for? Are you saying no trucks at all? Are you saying this is a very narrow road, we'd like it widened so we have enough room for cars and trucks to go in 2 lanes, plus people running on the road? What is it we're actually talking about trying to do here?
how about, well, no, I'll try to answer your question seriously. I don't know the answer. I don't have a predetermined solution in mind. That's why I came to the meeting, was to ask for help in figuring this out.
Okay.
If the recommendation is, an engineering study like we talked about before, or like what was suggested for the Curve Street scenario, that's fine. If there's something that could be done without an engineering study, that's fine. But the concern that I have is primarily not having my dam wash out if the thing collapses again.
Yeah.
But then also not like watching somebody get run over in my front yard if the Coca-Cola truck or whoever else is driving down the middle of the road and runs somebody, runs somebody over. So, like,
Yeah, you're looking for a solution. So,
That's-
does this make sense that we're trying to put something in place that Mo and Mark can work with you and try to
sure,
come up with?
I'm happy to.
With the number one priority being that your dam not wash out because of the way the water's coming in or because of some failure of the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing I worry about the most, but I also walk down the road and walk my dog down the road and ride my bike down the road. But,
So what I'd love to find out is the access road that I believe these delivery trucks are also using Walpole streets, right? Roads in Walpole. I'd love to know, Mo, if there are comments, concerns from Walpole residents that go along that same road that allows these delivery trucks to come off of 1A and come into Medfield or vice versa. Because then it's a solution for 2 towns.
Yeah.
Because if they're leaving your road, they're coming in somewhere else. And I know I've done that back road coming off of
High Street
leaving
into-
Stop and Shop in Walpole. So
well, if you take Elm Street and it turns into High Street when you get into Walpole, that's also narrow and twisty.
So
and
maybe
whatever.
that's an argument, Frank, for adding you to this working group to have an intermunicipal arrangement with Walpole. Find out if they have any issues about this as well.
Sure.
And so can we assign that to you guys and you can come back with some ideas for us?
Sure.
Mr. Massaro?
microphone.
Is there a speeding problem on the street?
Not of heavy trucks, but of cars there is, yeah.
It's too bad. I was saying if the trucks are speeding, you could at least have a temporary solution, just do some enforcement there to make it less attractive.
Yeah,
We've had neighbors request Chief Garrett to have patrols on the road, and they come on a semi-regular basis. I did talk to one of the officers who said she'd pulled over 6 people the previous day, so.
Well, and if a truck's driving right down the middle of the road, that's an infraction. You're either on your side of the road or you're not. And if you can't drive the truck down that road, that right there is a red flag.
Yeah, the problem is it's it's like Pine Street.
Well,
That's not realistic. That's actually not something you can do on a narrow road, even in a car.
But then common sense says a truck of that size. I mean, 2 cars can go down Phillip Street on no problem, right? I've done it many a times.
So
But a
Frank
truck like
and-
that is a little
and,
scary.
Mo, maybe you could include the chief of police in your working group and see if there's some way through enforcement that we can create a scenario that works for the town.
Sure. I also just want to note, there was a comment online, from Nolan Mayer. Extra insight, there is a Redgate Farm trailhead above the curve, which has lots of hikers and cyclists, which are in danger if those trucks come down.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. All right, so we're gonna work on this and get back then, and you'll be part of that group, I hope, Alex?
Of course.
Okay.
And I will be looking to hear from
somebody's
do you
gonna-
want to take the lead on this, or
Sure.
Frank, or?
Yeah, we'll get
Okay.
together and we'll.
All right, thank you, guys,
Thank you, Alex.
Okay,
Thanks, Alex.
happy holidays to all.
and to you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking care of the water level on Jewel Pond. Dog Control Bylaw Committee is now ready to proceed. Jill, thank you for coming.
Hey, Jill.
We changed our start time to confuse you.
All right, I'm Jill Radosta of 36 Long Meadow Road, resident of Medfield for the last 22 years, and I was voted as chair of the dog committee. We did submit the recommendations to the select board. We came up with some ideas, some recommendations, and we're looking at this as what Eileen mentions, quote unquote, a crawl, walk, run. And so we're looking to see as phase one of this, recommendation for the dog committee is that we change the bylaw from a voice control to on leash, except in designated areas that were actually designed through the charter that was given to us from the town.
Mhm.
So we worked diligently for the last just about 10 months, from March to October. And we had about 11 meetings. We did a public hearing September 20th, got a lot of feedback from many people that did attend. We got a lot of online email comments that were presented to us. And I feel as though at this point, we're now setting the recommendations to you for review and comments, and then we'll go forward.
Okay, thank you so much for all of your
Yeah,
work, and to your committee members.
absolutely.
Is that the August, this is the August 14th draft we're talking about.
So
There's a December 3 one, I think, December 5.
it
Right.
came,
Where did
it
that-
came through after our September 20th public hearing. It should have been,
Did that come to us?
Well, it's in the
It was in
packet,
the
right?
packet.
Ellen?
it's in a
Yeah.
packet.
Today's packet?
Yeah, it's literally the first document.
I don't know that it's any different than the August one, is it?
No.
No.
Well, that's good
There
to
might
know, but
be a
how
few.
did I go through the packet? I
It's
didn't see it.
it's in red, draft recommendations.
Mm-hmm. And we did the public hearing September
Really?
20th.
Okay.
So do you have any
Great.
comments on the August
Any-
recommendations?
Mhm.
Well, no, I didn't. And I attended the meeting back in, I guess it was August, where I get the walk,
Yeah,
so
crawl,
I
walk,
kind
run.
of appreciated the idea that we're trying to get parts of this. So my expectations are not like that this is the perfect final document.
Right.
This is weird. Okay. I will just report, and I probably should forward this to you, Eileen, and maybe you as well, Jill, but there was an incident with the dog. After arguing with Pete that the focus on this should always be open space, because we don't want to have the committee distracted by communities, I got an email from a local neighbor about a dog incident that occurred, I think, 2 days ago, that was at least, it lasted like 5 or 10 minutes, potentially serious.
Mhm.
At the
Right.
state hospital?
No,
Okay.
actually over near where I live, over on, off of Marlin. So in a neighborhood.
Okay.
So
Right.
we may wind up ultimately having to, Pete may have been right, that this should actually look at other issues, because this is something I didn't think would have been likely to happen.
Mhm.
Frank, what I'd like you to do, if you would, is to check with Jen Cronin, who was there. And if I assume she's writing a report, and that's probably a report the three of us should see, and then perhaps it's appropriate to share with not that you're necessarily going to change this,
Right,
but
right.
just if this is the issue, you
Mhm.
should probably know what it is. But I'd like to actually hear the animal control officer's report.
So I think the intent, and if I can
Are you
chime
all
in.
set, Gus?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
go
so-
ahead.
So,
Eileen.
so I think the intent is, for this coming May annual town meeting, is to address the bylaw in a baby step, which is go from today, it's off-leash or voice recall, to just remove voice recall. And whether we impact the areas that are, and I think this is what you're referring to, is what we deem where are off-leash areas.
Yeah, this was actually his case of a dog, as far as I can tell,
Residential
off-leash in
area.
a neighborhood, and it's not clear how that dog got off-leash,
Well,
because it's normally not.
Well, and so to me, I guess there's always going to be dogs that get free from a yard, right? So like, we're never going to solve that. But if we have the bigger problem today, which is, we know we have known areas in town where people are freely letting their dog off leash, and when Jenny or anyone confronts them, they're like, oh no, my dog responds to my voice recall, because our bylaws allow it. But if we remove that, and that becomes a warrant article that if we three of us agree, that's how we make the first change to addressing the dog issues that we have in town. That's the first thing. That definitely helps Jenny, because if she approaches you and your dog is 100, 200 yards away, it's off leash. There's no gray area. The whole idea of what's going to happen neighborhood to neighborhood, that's
But the thing that I think does, not now, but ultimately is of interest to a bylaw committee
Yep.
is when incidents that are as serious as it sounds like this one was, which is actually the second time it's happened.
Yeah.
First time was not reported. There should
That
be
could end
reporting
up- it
mechanisms.
Potentially could end up in front of you at some time, so I would suggest you kind of.
I know the rules because I have a dog.
From speaking about whatever
Yeah,
you know about the incident.
I won't reference that instance. I just do know, as a dog owner in Medfield, if my dog gets bit and I bring it to a vet, the vet immediately calls Jenny Cronin. Jenny Cronin calls me and says, do you know the owner? Because I didn't give the name at the vet. My dog was going to be quarantined for 45 days, but I did find the owner. They called Jenny. That same dog bites another dog. The third time, it's put down. There's no bite. That just that's what happens. If a dog has 3 infractions, the dog is put down. So I'm not sure we even need to get involved in if there's a second infraction of any dog, that there are certain rules that exist.
So my question is, how do these incidents get reported?
If you bring your dog, if your dog is
No,
hurt,
this is the test. I want to see how this incident gets reported.
okay.
I'm not asking a question. I'm saying I want to see how this gets handled.
Well, and if
because
it's
I
not
happen to know
handled
about it.
correctly, how do we get in the middle? And I
Then we
won't go
know.
any
Then
further.
we know that we have to do. Then we know that we have to do something. Not necessarily you between now and May,
Right.
but this was not just one little issue. This is we're doing a dog control bylaw here,
Right.
not a dog control bylaw only under certain circumstances. So
I'm just thinking in terms of, and again, I don't know the incident, and I don't need to go there, but some of it comes down to if people either report or don't report. If they don't report, we can't control that.
Well, I think the committee, the way we've, understood it to be, is that we were given a charter. It was to focus on the designated areas of the town and what was happening, what were some of the issues, what were getting the public feedback. And right now, the way it is written, it is by voice control. So we're
no,
trying.
I understand
Yeah.
that change. I
But in
understand that.
terms of-
I'm not arguing with what you're talking
Right.
about for May. I think we're having.
this
I thought we
incident
were
that could
having
be-
not a document discussion, but a dog control bylaw discussion,
The
which
next
has
step.
to do with dog
Yeah.
control. And for me, a piece of that has to do with how, when an incident occurs and an animal control officer is brought into that, how does the town report on that to where we would even know? The first time it happened, the person said, it happened, I didn't do anything about it.
Right.
Then the second time it happened, it's like, this was serious last time and I just swallowed it. This time it happened again. That's why I got the email on the day that it occurred. So I've got an action here that I'm basically not necessarily trying to bring up on this table, but I am curious to see what our process is for handling with that kind of what sounds like a serious incident.
The initiative's in the animal control officer.
Exactly.
At some point, you could be requested to hold a dangerousness hearing.
Well, and then we have.
And I
the-
want to see what we have. I
And
wanna
we
see
do.
what we're doing.
We have actual bylaws that the animal control officer does follow. Now,
That- I get it. I'm asking
Reporting
a question about a
yeah.
real event that just occurred.
Right.
And I asked Frank to show us the report
right,
when it comes out.
okay.
I've never seen a report, not once. Maybe you have. I've never seen a report.
Well, but that's what Chief Garrett brought to us when she said, this is the report, and then she gave us the animal update. So the police station collects the incidents. Now, we can ask every time the chief comes to give a report to give more of that data, but it's being collected by the police.
It is, because
like
I
to
do
I'd like to see
actually
it.
have a year-end report from
Oh, yeah, yeah.
2022 that they provided to me to show the number of dogs off leash in cars, dog attacks, dog bites, it went through great detail of what was
So
recorded.
what I'm basically
but
getting at is this particular
gonna be
incident, I'd
in.
like to see the report.
Okay.
And Frank's got,
Yeah,
we can get that.
okay.
Anything else, Eileen?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Massaro?
So, I've complained in the past about dogs coming over the wall and everything else. So just day before yesterday, there's a lot of noise in the back. A buck comes running through the woods, chased by 2 dogs. sleep hauling on the other side of the wall. And the deer got away, and I chased the two dogs out of the yard. Now, I'm not going to report that. I mean, what do I report? I mean, I'd have to chase the dogs myself, climb the wall, get out in the field, and then confront the people who let the dog go. I've done that in the past, by the way, without reporting, but I don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
So I understand the crawl, walk, run approach to this and everything else, and I'm not objecting to that, but I do think you still need to address what happens in the open spaces.
And the voice.
Keep that in mind as this goes forward. So again, I'm endorsing what, Gus's comments and saying it's something that you still need to consider. That's all. Not at
Here's
this
what
moment.
does play out is the fact that today, in theory, there is nothing that Jenny can do, because the person's going to say, my dog responds to voice recall, and then you're going to debate, did the dog respond or not? Right? That's the problem we have today.
Yeah,
but
we
the
all
moment,
agree with that, and that's
Yeah,
going to get
No,
solved.
I'm talking about
so what I'm saying is, so the next
steps for the open areas
So-
are what I'm talking about.
So at town meeting, we put a warrant article, we completely removed that. So now Jenny finally has a chance to issue a violation. And then the next step would be 2025, where we start looking at fees, medallions, whatever that we have to pass.
I understand. In fact, I said I endorsed your walk, your crawl walk one approach, and I obviously have complimented Jill and her committee on the work that they've done to date. Jill and I have talked about this before.
Okay.
But again, it ultimately has to consider more than just the designated area. The designated areas need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
So that's all I'm saying.
Part of where I'm coming from here is that we will always have, when it comes to dogs, even an owner that thinks they know their dog doesn't know how that dog will react to another dog that they don't know. So even totally responsible owners can find themselves in a situation where two dogs have an altercation that neither owner thought was going to happen. But there's also owners that are lax, and that's a gray zone between what's allowed, what's not allowed, under what circumstances. One of the ways for us to get more responsible behavior will be to get more extensive reporting or more immediate reporting. Because when people understand that they're going to be held, that there are sanctions, that they're going to be held accountable for something, suddenly they tighten their own stance. So what I'm really doing here is not simply trying to get everything written down in black and white, that here's the rule, you broke the rule, here's the punishment. I'm basically trying, I think where we'll need to go as a town, if we really want to do something here, is get to the point where people who have dogs own a greater extent of the responsibility of their dog, even the unpredictable part of it. And the only way I know to get there with that is enhanced reporting, where suddenly, if it happens, but you got to report it.
Gus, I'm sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
Medfield TV, can you just make sure that the microphones are working? We've got a couple folks asking in the chat.
It might be when Bill was talking.
Oh,
Can I say one thing out of respect to what I know the committee was working on, and this is something they're passionate about, is that education, communication, not to jump and try to find an offense, but to slowly make sure that people who have had a comfort zone of doing things that we're now trying to stop, really spend the time and energy to make sure that in these areas that we are addressing, at least right now,
Yes.
to break the habit of people doing certain things that we're now going to discourage and fine for. But over communicate, and then people will start to help monitoring it themselves. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I think if we have an approach that's education, information, and just having open lines of communication from one dog walker to another.
Yeah, for no other reason, we can't afford the resources to do draconian enforcement.
Right.
You really do need goodwill. So you guys are on the right track with that. Yeah.
I know we do have our public hearing at 7, but we do have someone in the audience who'd like to speak. I'm not sure if you want to hold that or
Sure, we'll let him speak.
Jeff Hyman.
So while you're getting that person online, I'll just tell you about my reaction, Jill. I think that it's really important that we have a bylaw that's enforceable, because Mark's been telling us for years that we don't have anything that works. And so we need that bylaw with the absolute leash that you're proposing to do. I think that we need to have a larger area than just the public. Well, you're saying public. I think it should be a town-wide leash bylaw, basically. I differ from my colleagues on that, and so the charter ended up being limited to public areas rather than the whole town. But we need a bylaw that Mark is convinced can be enforceable and gets enforced. And then the other area that I noticed in your proposed bylaw that I needed to ask you about was that you're proposing town trash bins. And I mean, I've noticed the trash bins up at the state hospital near your house, and I'm sure you've noticed those don't get emptied very often.
Right.
Those are being emptied on a volunteer basis, but I don't know that we want to have Mark's Mo's DPW going around emptying cans of poop. I don't know if that's a workable
Not just
solution.
poop, though. It's coffee mugs, it's pizza things. People go up and eat and drink. And I know Christine has this policy of take out what you take in, but we don't post that anywhere. So
Well, and, yeah, and no one's doing that. So clearly, I mean, people put their dog poop in bags and they leave it because they don't want to put it in their car apparently, or so.
and Starbucks mugs and Dunkin' Donut mugs and sub bags and a lot of things would end up in the trash cans. So I guess my quandary with this trash pickup has been, 1 minute we want to claim it's our land, it's town land, we manage it, and then that's not really town land that we want to maintain and keep up and keep it clean. It's like we can't have our cake and eat it too.
You know, I mean, we've got a problem. I mean, you know, we've got conservation land in this town that people are abusing. I mean, you wouldn't want to hear about some of the stuff that gets left on the conservation land that I've heard about. Alec Stevens is aware of it at his house too.
Human waste, unbagged.
Yeah.
But I just
And
received an
Alec got them on camera because he was monitoring what was going on his property, and even then the people that are pooping in his yard are saying, "Oh, not me."
Right.
But you know, they're doing that at Redgate Farm too, Alec. It's, you know, the people that monitor the conservation land are aware that you know, we've got a problem. And it's not just the dogs, but
Right.
you know, we do it. And so I sent you that material from Bob Costello because I met with him
Yes.
this afternoon. And he's
About the green
focusing
dog.
on the poop problem at the
Blue Hills,
trustees and
yep.
Blue Hill Reservation, and suggested that you get in touch with those people. And I think that's a natural progression for your committee to follow up on, and so that we don't have the same poop problem. And I think we need to sort of have a sea change in how we train dog owners to think that, you know, you always have to have a plastic bag in your pocket, and you got to pick up and just take it with you. You don't just leave it by the side of the road.
Right.
The box and your lunch bag.
Yes, Mark.
So I just want to put this in context. You've got issues with dogs running loose, and that is focus. We otherwise have a very comprehensive dog control bylaw in terms of dangerous and nuisance. There's a whole listing of prohibited conduct.
Yeah, but those are the rare things.
Right. Well, it seems to go to the incident that Gus is talking about. So I just want to make sure you're aware that
I'm more interested in how we react when it's a serious.
I mean, I met with a client today who ended up in the hospital from a dog bite in Medfield. So I mean,
And to Pete's,
there are serious incidents that are
to
happening.
Pete's point about the leash, with what you're planning to do in May, I would think I've already sort of said I agreed with Pete that I had discounted the residential areas in the past, but that actually had more to do with the fact that it seemed to me the real challenge was the open space off-leash areas of public, and I didn't want to distract into what I thought were insignificant issues in neighborhoods. But the thing you're changing, to the extent that that's been in place even throughout the town, I actually agree with Pete that kind of a change should be applied across the board
Right.
in town, unless I'm missing a nuance here. So I would agree with you, Pete, for the
The
changes
town
being made
wide.
around tightening up the leash and not having the positive control as the option to a leash. If people in town thought they could do that in the residential areas, I'm in total agreement with Pete. It's like, no, dogs are on leashes.
I'll send you guys the material that Bob Costello shared with me this afternoon. I mean, where is it? It's at Blue Hills. They have an app, and they have the hikers monitoring the dog poop through the Blue Hills Reservation, and they're using the app to figure out where all the dog poop is in the Blue Hills Reservation. I mean, that sounds very scientific. That should appeal to you, Alex. So,
Did they pick it up or did they just monitor it? Go, yeah, it's a
I,
blue bag.
yes, they do pick it
Just
up,
throw it
because,
out,
yes,
yeah.
because Bob said that he picks it up,
Okay.
yeah. So,
There's,
thank you for your work.
Is online.
Anything else you need from us, or?
Just your support and putting it on the article as an article and for us to vote so we can move to phase 2 and try to make some changes that are positive. Not everybody's going to agree with it, but I think it's a great start.
So what you want to do is you want to work with Mark and Frank on working out the language of the warrant article,
Placeholder.
and then it'll come back.
He's been promoted.
So Neil Downing's on. He's part of the dog committee.
Big word?
The
Neil
gentleman that
Downing's on.
asked to be promoted, Neil is on. He's part of the dog bylaw committee.
Oh, okay, and he's ready to talk now?
And Jeff Hyman as well is on.
Okay. Who are you giving us first, Frank?
I
Neil.
think Jeff was on first, so I will.
Okay,
guess I'll-
Jeff, go ahead.
You support the efforts being made. One of the things that I noticed, I looked at the existing dog rules that are posted, is the statement, the bullet point, do not allow your dog, even if friendly, to approach other dogs or people. So I guess when you think about what you're gonna change, then obviously you have to make changes to the sign. But what is the feeling of the board related to that? Because I think generally speaking, you can tell that mutual dog owners are friendly, allow dogs to approach. I think it's really when dogs approach people that don't have a dog, right? I think on the good side, I'm noticing that some walkers are very responsible. That they sort of get it. They see, because when I walk there, I don't have a dog, and they're very respectful of that. So I do appreciate that. My other comment is, it seems like the dog food thing, it's like a few bad actors, right? You have most people collecting their stuff. But obviously that needs work because, it is near the well, conservation area. But I think that do not allow your dog to approach, even if friendly, other dogs or other people. That's something, I don't know how you enforce that, but I think it would be appreciated. I mean, a leash to me is, I get it. The dogs want to have fun, but you just have to consider that one because I think it's a tough one to control, enforce. I think today was a little experience with 2 dogs and sort of running and, coming towards me and, I'm not scared really as much as I used to be from the dog bite I had a little while ago, but I'm not afraid that, but there's jumping. I guess I'd call it just a little more aggressive. So we have to definitely address this sort of approach to other people and dogs, because I think I'm concerned for the town that if there is an incident on town property, in the case today, I was at the state hospital, could there be liability to the town? I don't know. I don't know what pockets people go after, but we just have to be prepared. Thanks.
So Jeff, if you want to work through these details that you're raising, you should probably go to the committee meetings and work it through with them as they work through on the bylaw. So next we'll go to Neil. Is it Downing?
Yep.
And then we do have the.
Neil? Thanks, Jeff.
Hi, folks, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Thank you. I was a member of the committee working side by side with Jill, and one of the things that came out of the public hearing was an idea where you would have a license fee for dog walkers, especially the dog walkers that came to the hospital out of town. I'm up there probably 6 days out of 7 during the week walking my dog, and at certain times of day, many minivans pull in, and you could have 20 or 30 dogs come out within a matter of 15, 20 minutes. And none of these people are a few of these people are within the town, and Frank was a representative on the committee that is a professional dog walker, so we got his input. But we have a lot of dog walkers coming from out of town, using that place for a commercial enterprise. And one of the recommendations of the public hearing was to charge those people a fee to walk dogs on town property, and that would bring in some income into the town so that you could do maybe signage, or you could pay for some beneficial items up there at the hospital, because you have a lot of people, I would say probably 50-50 of people that are in town and people that are out of town. So I just wanted, while we had the select committee together, considering the recommendations, just to be aware of that public idea that came through the public feedback, and consider it.
Thanks, Neil. I think that you've probably seen the materials from John Thompson, who was the building and grounds person up at the hospital, and he had looked at a lot of the dog issues and the Newton bylaws, and I know he was proposing different ways of registration and maybe parking stickers, and so I hope your committee will take a look at that. And
They already have. Frank went to Newton personally and spent a day and walked some of the parks, learned about the revenue that's collected every year. So I think it's $250,000.
So over 100,000 that they bring in for revenue for a medallion program.
They provided it, yep.
Yeah, so recommendations for Medfield from what you do, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I have a hard time picturing how you could just target one group to have to get registered, that if we have some sort of a registration, like in the direction of a Rocky Woods where everybody registers, then I can see I could do that. But beyond that, the more fundamental question for me is, and I haven't raised it as an issue right now because everything's in flux, but why are we so committed to making sure that out-of-town commercial dog walkers
I'm not
can
committed
use
to
our
that at
public
all.
space? I actually don't think we should. So, yeah, they may be a revenue source, but I think that's less important than us keeping the public space open for people who want to use it that don't necessarily have dogs here in town. I don't want to shut the public space down to anybody that's not Medfield, like the pond over in Springdale, but I don't think we need to go out of it, because right now we have, I think, a statewide reputation.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
the best public space.
And I would say
for
that
commercial
bothers
dog
me
walkers
that we
to
have
go.
that reputation,
Yeah.
and that people are flocking to Medfield because they think it's wide open, but that's up to you guys to come up with some solutions for us.
I think what we're trying to also do is limit the number of dogs per handler, because that will help to streamline some of the issues.
I mean, one of John Thompson's ideas was to have parking permits for places like the hospital, so that you can't park there unless you have a parking permit, and then you can bring your dogs out if you have a parking permit. It's just a way of figuring out how to control the sites.
To be fair, this committee actually has brought a ton of ideas forward already. What they're saying to us, which is her opening remarks of crawl, walk, run, the baby step is, unless we change our minds between now and May of 2024, we make a modification to the dog bylaw now, which is remove voice recall. And then we work with the committee to figure how do we implement May meeting 2025 of medallions, stickers for park. We know we can't do that between now and next May, but we know it's going to have to pass town meeting if we're going to try to make a lot of these changes. So I think you guys have
This will
brought in,
also
I mean,
help
Frank
law
brought a ton
enforcement.
of great ideas for us.
Oh, yeah, I
It will
agree.
definitely help
And I
law
appreciate all the
enforcement.
work you've done, and I would welcome anything more you can do, because I think I don't want it to be a 5-year process of getting to where we need to get. So I'm hoping that you guys can do as much as you can, as fast as you can, so.
But here's the idea. So as a select board, this is what we're up against. And correct me if I'm wrong with this, but if we bring too much in May of 2024, it's just going to get shot down, right? Versus make it small, continue to educate and communicate. So as we continue to modify this, and I don't think Newton did it overnight either. I
No,
think
they
Newton
did
took
not.
a period of time to start to change the way, and again, also knowing that the state hospital is going to be under construction, God willing, for 2 years. So it's going to change the whole dynamics of parking stickers, who's up there, where they can walk. So I think the number one priority, and something that we heard for the last year, is we need to at least start to make a difference in our bylaw for controlling dogs in open space and potentially now in neighborhoods.
Yeah, basically, I would think your committee would not want to go into a town meeting with an article that you don't already know has broad support.
Right, exactly.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Joe.
you. Thank you for your time.
And to
Thanks,
your
Marty.
committee, too.
Thanks, Neil.
They can start anytime.
Oh, one last point. I think just on the draft relative to this article, I think we all three said the draft looks fine. None of us have heartburn, so this article is probably going to largely, there may be wordsmithing, but this
Be a warrant
is,
article.
you're in good shape.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, our next appointment is a tax classification hearing. Thank you for coming, Yvonne.
You're gonna declare the hearing open.
I declare the hearing open.
Pete, do you have the language in
I
front of
do.
you?
Can you
Should I
that?
read? Yvonne's asked me to read, so I will, of course, read. Legal notice. Town of Medfield, public hearing. Attention taxpayers! Is that enough?
Perfect. It's perfect.
The Medfield Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, December 5, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Chinery Meeting Room, second floor, Townhouse, 459 Main Street for the tax classification purposes. The central issue will be the discussion during the tax classification hearing is whether all 5 classes of property, residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal, shall be taxed in the same rate or at different rates for the fiscal year 2024. Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56. The Board of Assessors will provide relevant information regarding the tax rate, including the fiscal effects of available alternatives. Interested taxpayers are urged to attend the hearing. Written and oral statements from interested taxpayers will be accepted by the Select Board's office and considered at the hearing. Floor is yours.
Thank you. All right, so Frank is doing my slides, so there might be a little pause here and there. So I'm going to give my presentation, and then there was 2 letters that we received, so I will address those after, and then I will ask for questions, if that's okay with the Select Board. Okay, so I'm back. It's time to split the rate or not split the rate. Frank has just put up the slide where it shows our tax rate levy. And as you can see, that big pie there, most of it is raised by the residential tax base, which is almost 95%. And then the rest is made up of the commercial, industrial, and personal. So the purpose of this is for the Select Board to decide whether they want to maintain the uniform tax rate or if they want to split that tax rate and make the commercial owners pay a higher rate. So next slide. So if you decide to keep the uniform tax rate, you would vote a factor of 1. If you decided to change that, then you would vote a lower factor. So the maximum the town could adopt is a 50% split. So you would vote a residential factor of, it's up there, 0.972575. So the residential tax rate would then be, with a split, $14.24, and the commercial, industrial, and personal tax rate would become $21.96. And you can see with the split, that pie has really not changed that much.
Right.
Okay, so I always give this surrounding towns last year's tax rates. And as you can see, it's the same 2 highlighted towns, Walpole and Westwood. They split their rate. The rest of our surrounding towns don't split the rate. And they have a much greater commercial, industrial, personal base. Typically, towns that don't have more than, if they have less than 10% commercial, they're not splitting their rate. So the history of tax rate in Medfield, we've never split the rate. That's it for that slide. So you can really clearly see what a split would do to the commercial properties in the individual scenarios. So our new single family average for fiscal year 24 is 903,200. So this is just a what if scenario. I have a residential property of that and a commercial property of the 903,200. And with splitting the rates, you can see the difference. If you shifted it 10%, the residents would be saving on average $72. And out of a $13,000 tax bill, I don't think you're really going to notice that $72. Whereas a commercial property is going to increase by $1,300, and they would notice that. And that's just with a 10% shift. When you get down to that maximum shift, we could do a 50%. The residents would save $361 on average, but your commercial is going to go up over $6,000, which is quite a hit. And it's because there is such a small percentage of commercial, industrial, and personal property that it's such an extreme shift. Okay, so historically, our numbers really don't change that much, and this just verifies that. So again, we're looking at about 5% on the commercial, industrial, and personal. Okay, here is your single-family average category. Again, I'll repeat it, 903,200 for fiscal year '24, and your tax dollars are 13,223. So that's an increase of about a little over 2%. Values are going up right under 8% on average. So, that's the end of my presentation. I will address the two questions that the select board received. It was basically the same question. We had a couple of residents that requested the select board to create another category within the residential to split that. You can't. Okay, so this is all set out by mass law. There are only 5 types of property. The category that they wanted it split is already a part of the residential category. So you cannot further subdivide those general categories of property. So those people will be receiving a detailed letter from me explaining the process. But basically, you cannot change. The select board doesn't have that kind of power. So, do you have any questions for me?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Gus, questions?
I'd just make 2 points, only that maybe not everybody picks up on when you were talking about the valuation of the house going up 8%. There are some people that only pay attention to the mill rate, the tax rate, and they just look at that in a vacuum. If you really want to understand your taxes, you got to look at what your taxes really are. If the valuation of the houses are going up 8%, but the taxes are going up more like at 2%, then the tax rate itself will go down. It's just going to be applied to a higher valuation. And as long as I've been here in this town, there are still people who don't realize those two things work together. So I'd make that point. I had one other point and I just lost it. Oh, I know what it was. The only other point that is not part of the tax rate, but is important for people like the 2 letters we got, is that we don't have a way of doing that, but the town does have the tax work-off program for seniors who would like to get a break on their taxes. That would be probably the one most immediate path that I think we could look at as a select board to provide greater relief to seniors if we choose to. And there's probably an argument to look at it. So it's not like they're just stuck, sorry, we can't do it. There may be some other things we could do to help some people like that.
So a lot of towns like Sudbury and I think it's Wayland have special legislation from the state to allow them to provide tax relief to seniors that have been in town for a long time. I've advocated for that for a long time because I think that we want to keep those seniors in town. So I think that basically what we would be doing is the rest of us in town would be subsidizing their tax.
It's a more complicated.
It is.
You need special legislation.
Yeah, they do have special legislation, but it also is, it's not every senior. It's a senior of certain means. So it's not every income would qualify for that, not every means would qualify for that. So, but there are, I was just at a conference, and speaking of exemptions, they are supposedly coming up with another exemption for seniors that the state is doing. So it would be another one that the town could locally adopt, but it is something that the state is putting together. So you may want to wait and see what happens with that.
There was
So
more muscle to the circuit breaker too, or something, more money for the seniors through that.
right, the state senior, right, the seniors should definitely, if you're over 60, you should definitely look at that circuit breaker. It's in your the state income taxes. It's credit CB. If your taxes are prepared for you, you definitely want to have somebody look at that. They did raise it up from 1,000 to 2,000.
Oh, that's what
So
I
that
was
is a
thinking
good
then. Okay.
savings for seniors.
Any questions?
No, I appreciate what you just presented. I appreciate you answering the questions, addressing the letters. And, you know, I understand why we do what we do. We can't disadvantage our small bit of business that we do have in this town. We know that we'd love to strive to bring more commercial in, and, you know, to be a Walpole would be fantastic, but we don't have the square footage to get to that magnitude right now. So I appreciate you explaining everything. Thank you.
So
Welcome.
we do this every year, and every year I agree that it makes no sense to have anything other than the unified tax rate. So, and it's for the reasons that Eileen's talking about, that the benefit to the residents is gonna be so small compared to the penalty to the commercial base that it doesn't make sense in our situation, so. Any questions from our,
Sure,
Ken
of
Manning?
course. This is,
Thanks. So I'm Ken Manning on the Board of Assessors. I wanted to follow up on something that Gus just mentioned and point out that the tax rate in Medfield has gone down by nearly 20% since 2019, and indeed has gone down every year since 2019. Now, of course, valuations have gone up, but the actual rate has actually consistently declined. And you're right, Gus, a lot of people really don't understand that, and they just look at that mill rate. The mill rate's actually is down quite significantly. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Do we have a motion then, Eileen?
All right.
We want to close the public hearing.
Oh, the public hearing is hereby closed. Thank you,
Confirm
Mark.
that there's nobody questions from the audience or at home and
No, there's nobody online.
been
We
closed.
need like a card that's green when the public hearing is open, and you flip it to red, because if Mark didn't remember, we'd never.
So motion to accept the class 1 tax?
Motion to close the public.
Oh, motion to close
Well,
the,
declare it closed, one way or the other, just close.
I declared it closed
That's what I thought.
already.
so to accept the class 1 classification, is that what we're motioning for?
It's single, I think it's a
Single tax
adopt
rate.
a residential factor of 1.
Okay, all right, okay, person. Motion to adopt the residential factor of 1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you very
Thanks,
much.
Yvonne.
Thank you.
And I guess we have time for Belforge. We have 15 minutes, Gene, is that enough? You're not doing much?
5 minutes.
And Sean is who you were looking for? Okay, he's on here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the clock on the wall, that's wrong. Do
Can we
you want,
present?
do you have more than 5 minutes of stuff?
You have more than 5 minutes worth of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so what, do you mind waiting? I'm sorry. Update on Curve Street truck exclusion, Mo?
Mo's gonna need more than 5 minutes.
We had one of our consultants, Beta Group, do a truck exclusion that we were asked to do for the Curve Street area. They did the report. We just received that report recently, and their findings were that it didn't warrant an application to the state, because the state is the ones that would approve or deny a truck exclusion. The study found that usually they like to see anywhere between 5 and 8%, 5% being a minimum, 8% being what they ideally would like to see of truck traffic on these roads. 5% they would consider, discussion about it. This truck exclusion found it was 0.8% of trucks in that area. I know there's a question, Chris, you had a question about the 48-hour time frame.
It's weird. Yeah.
And actually, I've with other consultants looking at the Massachusetts MUTCD guidelines, they actually call for a 24-hour. So 48 hours is what the standard is, because 24 is what the state would allow. And if you wanted a 12-hour, they would say that would suffice as well. So 48 hours is a fair determining time for that study. But that was the kind of the gist of the study that came forward.
Any questions, Gus?
Two questions. One, in reading through the report, I first snagged up when they gave the statistics on buses. I'm going, what? We don't have that many buses. And then I realized they were talking about school buses.
Right.
And that led to a question that if we did go through with this exclusion, would we have to then redesign our school
It's
bus
anything
routes?
over 2.5 ton. Now, a school
Okay.
bus can run anywhere around 25,000 pounds, which is 12 ton,
Yeah.
over
So-
12 ton.
So that was, it doesn't matter. It's a moot point.
You can have exemptions,
Yeah.
but it's still causing the issues.
Okay. Now, it still is a weird road. Even just driving a car on that sort of a weird road is downhill. It's a curve and it's sort of narrow. And it's good you're here, Chris. if we decided, okay, we can't do what we wanted to do, but we still thought there was a problem, would we have the option of making that a one-way street?
Mark, you can answer that one.
I believe that also, they have oversight over that as well.
Okay, so you can't do that either, okay.
Their starting point is that public roads are for the public at large.
Mm-hmm.
And the burden shifts if you try to restrict that in any way, shape, or form. And you're dealing with a huge bureaucracy.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, if you just extrapolate what you just said up to the issue that Alex was talking about, it makes no sense at all to even have one or two semis going down that road. And if they're just gonna look at a percentage and say, that's okay, that's what you're dealing with.
Right.
So can you guys look at that issue? Because making it one way makes a lot of sense to me, and it might work for Alex's issues too, to make that.
I suspect,
So
on
maybe-
my experience, you ultimately have to get the legislators involved.
Yeah,
and
well,
bring
if you
that
can,
kind of
if you can look into it and get back to us on that. And anything else on,
That's it?
I do.
That's all I
Eileen?
have.
Yeah. So I do have a question. When was the study done? September or October?
September.
Okay, because the chart read, which threw me for a loop.
27th and 28th of September after school got back in.
Right, but the underneath it read data obtained October 26th, October 27th, 2021. So I didn't know where, it's on page 5 of 9. So I was like, and then obtained 2021. I'm like, that can't be right. So I was trying to figure out where that data point came from.
I don't see where you're.
In the legend at the
It's
bottom
under
of the
table 2, peak hours. It shows Curve, South Street, Spring. But when you read it, it says data obtained, unless I'm reading this wrong, October 26th, 27th, 2021.
Is that the ADT though? That's not, that was established beforehand?
I don't know. When I looked at the dates originally,
But
and
it
I
was,
read,
it was September 27th, 28th when they did do the 48-hour period.
and that would have been 2022, 2023. Yeah, that's why I was like, I don't know why we would have any reference to 2021.
It might be the data that they took for the information that they had available that they, and then did the 48-hour period for this year. But I'll check with our consultants, but it could be a misprint, but I think.
That's all I'm getting at, but when I read it, it just threw me because I just want to make sure that
Yep.
we're going off the recent data.
Yep.
And then in reading through this, the only thing that did throw me is when they talk about the width of the road, I think it says it narrows at 20 feet. They don't really address the whole dangerous part of that entire road is going over the bridge. There's no room for pedestrians without literally taking their life in their own hands because of the blind dip to it. So I think that's originally what was brought up, is why we were concerned with trucks going over that road, in particular, that stretch of the road. Down by South Street, there's been no accidents, thank goodness, because it's clear vision. I think it's been 3 at the intersection of 27 and Curve, but the gist of the concern was the bridge, and I feel like some way or another, that kind of got pushed out of the, it's my own 2 cents in the determining.
I will ask the consultant to kind of give a little bit of information on that.
Okay, thank you.
You all done?
I'm all set, thank you.
My only comment was noticing that the volume on Curve Street was almost the same as the volume on South Street, which just surprised the heck out of me. So I think we have a problem on Curve Street, but I don't know what the solution is, so.
It's called Waze. In the old days, everyone didn't know the
Yeah,
shortcut.
well, maybe the one way is a way that we could do it partially. I think I see a question in the audience. Yes?
Yeah.
Chris?
Chris Potts, I mentioned this to Mo and I also showed Alec, but Pioneer Valley, the Pioneer Valley planning group for that region put forth, it's actually, it's an old document, but the guidelines on the state review are exactly the same as it is today. But they said in the event a restrictive ordinance is not approved, basically by the state, the municipality may seek voluntary control measures. And they showed a photo of an example of a sign that said trucks are requested not to use this road per order of selectmen. And they did this in the town of Suffield. So maybe that's a way of
Maybe speed bumps as well, or something of
So
that sort.
I just mentioned that as another
Yeah, okay.
idea. I don't know what
Thank
our
you.
town council thinks about that.
Anything else on Kerr Street? Okay,
Thanks, Mo.
thank you, Mo. Thanks for doing multiple duties with us tonight, and we got a couple more for you, so don't go away. Now we have a joint meeting with the school committee, and we have a table for the school committee. Thank you, folks, for coming.
One member.
Oh, you're
Zoom,
having
too.
one member attend by Zoom, that's right, yeah.
And I did not check. My assumption is it's the same Zoom in our agenda in the select board.
Who's dialing in remotely?
Will Horn.
Will Horn is not in town, and so my assumption is I just texted to make sure. My assumption, we have a he's on. Okay, yeah. So if we can bring Will forward.
Okay, and so at this point, we've agreed that select board would turn the meeting over to the school committee, and you can start
Already
your
declared
meeting.
You declared yourselves open already?
I was about to do that. I wanted to confirm. Yeah, we do have here. So yeah, no, I was gonna. We just made get the volume on that.
He's working on it.
Any Mota. I was going to entertain a motion to open the school committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, and because we have one member on Zoom, we'll do a roll call vote. All in favor?
You have to identify that member who's on Zoom.
Okay. So Will Horn is on Zoom, and Will was going to, Tim Knight here.
Michelle Kirkby here.
Leo Brown here. Will Horn here.
Okay, and all in favor to open up the school committee meeting? Tim Knight, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Leo Brown, yes. Will Horn, yes.
Okay, great. And before I'm going to thank you folks, but before doing that, we'll take public comment as we do in our normal meetings. Members of the public will be welcome to comment during the public input period, either through the microphone up here or on Zoom. If you are on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand. We ask that you keep your camera on when making a Zoom comment. In either case, identify your name and address. And we ask that you follow the school committee policy for public input, including speaking for no more than 3 minutes and only on topics under the purview of the school committee. The overall period for public comment that we would like to target is 15 minutes or less. Okay. So, and I guess before doing that, I didn't say, but thank you to the select board for making time for the school committee, for joining us. And the purpose of this meeting is for the school committee and the select board are going to make an interim appointment to fill the vacant seat on the school committee until the March 24th town election. So, but is there any public comment, either in the room or on Zoom?
On Zoom.
I don't see anything on Zoom.
So I don't know if this is the appropriate time. I do want to put one question before the school committee, and I think this is a school committee decision, so I'm not arguing, but I do want to raise a question about whether it makes sense to actually appoint an interim member of the school committee, given that we have a March election that's coming up in 3 months. And I'm sensitive to that for two reasons. Number one, at least in the past, the person that gets picked for this, as a practical matter, has an inside lane in the election because they're already there. And I'm a little sensitive to that setup. I don't know that that's the best thing. I don't know that that's the best dynamic you want, but that's your call. And the second reason I've even raised it is because last March, you may recall, when there was the discussions around whether Jessica Riley should be allowed to remain active in the building committee, the argument for that was that there were 2 new members of the school committee, and they needed at least 2 or 3 months to come up to speed before they could really, be productive. So I'm saying, well, it's 2 to 3 months before this election. Is there actually a useful thing? I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm asking a question of the school committee. If you say, nope, we want to do it, then I'm good with that. We will proceed. I just think that that's a basic question that might be worth considering.
And can I do a follow-on to that? And again, we want to follow your lead here in the sense that it's an appointment to your committee. But on that same train of thought, the only thing I'd throw out there, and again, you guys haven't heard this because can't say anything until we're together, is even if you say, you know what, Eileen, we do want to appoint somebody, my thing would be, if somebody wants to do it, I hope they want to do it for the next 3 years, right? So is there a chance to, even if we talk tonight, but we delay the selection until the 19th, because then that should technically give everybody a chance to file their paperwork. So we know, because I don't think the paperwork is out yet to submit your name for election for our town elections in March. But they should be out, I believe, next week. And then we meet again on the 19th. So on the 19th, we could say, okay, we'll either go ahead with it, or you see who's put their name in the hat. And if it allows you the window to wait until March 24th, so be it. But just food for thought.
Hold on one sec. Do you want us to speak to Gus's first thing?
I might
Yeah,
just, let me
can,
just add, I would look at it the opposite from Eileen.
Okay.
I don't think it's a good thing for somebody who definitely wants to run to be the one we're looking at. It would be very easy for me to go with someone who declares, I don't want to run, I'm just trying to help the town out for 2 or 3 months. So you and I are looking at what's a good situation there in the opposite way.
Yeah, it goes off to what you were saying about if it takes time to ramp up, somebody's just ramping up and then they're stepping aside, it's kind of silly. Whereas if we let the town decide who it should be, it's within 2.5 months. But again, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, so one, I did hear from your meeting last week that came up, and I was out of town, so otherwise I would have voiced in then. I would ask the same question. Okay, why would we do it? It seems logical. One, it is, we checked with our attorney, it is consistent with the statute within the state and the policy that we do nominate and fill that interim appointment within 30 days, is the way it reads. And depending on the interpretation, it says in the event that we don't, our board would be deferring to you. So on, primarily.
I have the statute here if you want to read
We actually talked about it last week, and we were discussing what will and shall and may mean. So as I said, I'm not trying to argue. I put the question on the table for the school committee. You just need to confirm you want to do it, and we're good.
Well, that was our understanding, and I guess just so I'm following you exactly, I mean, with the 19th or the paperwork, could you explain that?
Like right now, we have no idea if any of these people who have submitted their name have any intention to run, because they can't submit the paperwork, right? But next week they can, I believe on Monday or Tuesday. If they fill it out, we're meeting 2 weeks again, in another 2 weeks, excuse me. And in that window, we'll know who's actually going to be running in March, right? So if we have to appoint somebody in the sense, okay, we've now selecting from a pool of people that are showing you that they're committed for the next 2 to 3 years. And I understand the concern of giving somebody the inner lane to, right? So that is a concern, but it's also, it's reality if that's how this plays out.
Right.
Or the if, shall, may, whatever legal words that get played out, are we going to be in the courts because you didn't fill a slot between now and March 24th?
We have been advised by legal to follow that as if we have that deadline, I will say. But you bring up a very interesting point, because it is part of, this is the second time I've had to go through this process. It does seem, because these are elected seats, and it is up to people to put people on those seats. And so having such a small group make that decision on behalf of the town, is a very important decision. I guess I feel a lot of weight on that decision, because it does give that person, as you said, like, a little bit of a view to use if they were to run in a contested election. At the same time, I would say that, as we saw last year, we didn't have a lot of interest, right, for the 2 open seats. We could have open people up there trying to recruit people and say, hey, do you have any interest in serving? And then lo and behold, we have, for this particular role, we had at least 7 or so interested folks, right?
That's good.
So it's very, very good, right? So that's so it's nice to see. So yeah, I understand both questions for sure because I asked the very same question. Oh, we're so close. You know, why do we?
Yeah, and I would just close it. I mean,
Yeah.
my own view, one, independent of the view from council, it is an essential position. We don't want to be short-staffed. If those who know me, I always think about what bad things happen if we don't. Any other member can resign at any time. And as a normal course and speed is we don't fulfill it, what happens when we're down to 3 or 2 or 1? Right? I don't think, just independent of the legal counsel, I think it's appropriate to try to maintain a full staff. It is consistent with the process that the school committee has followed in the past. And I would say, I was going to say a couple moments of thank you. Like, you know, I think the process, we value everybody's time here tonight, but I think even this process is valuable for the community. Who knows? For me, when I served, before raising my hand, do I want to run? There's a different element. It allows some people to at least begin to say, do I want to think about it? So overarching, when I look at it, I think it is worthwhile. It's consistent with the statutes anyways, but I think it's a fair question. I thought the same thing before having knowledge of it.
We thought we'd also bring someone on during the budget season, which is always fun.
Yeah, I mean.
And could I ask one administrative question? Meredith Chamberlain, I gathered, although she said she was interested, did not submit any paperwork. Is that
That is
correct?
correct.
Okay.
However, she did express interest, so I think it was felt that her name remain on it.
We had 9 applicants total.
Mhm.
One person was not eligible and was not able to gain eligibility by today. The other person formally withdrew their name. So the 7 remaining, you have the 6 applications that came in for those 6, and Meredith chose not to submit one, but also didn't formally remove her name.
Okay.
And any other. So one comment as well, and I said it, there is genuinely an enormous thank you for those that applied. Echoing what Leo said a couple minutes ago, I was delighted not only with the number of candidates who raised their hands, the quality of the candidates was excellent.
Mhm.
And sincerely, volunteering, raising your hand, and nominating makes our committee and the schools stronger.
Regardless of the outcome, I think that that pool of people should continue to volunteer. And there's plenty of spots, elected and not elected, that could use help in that space. And some of these people are doing it, and some of them are definitely interested in the schools, obvious reasons, and just pleasantly surprised by some of the people who are here and what they do for a living, and some of the breadth of experiences too that some people had, both in schools and out of schools, professionally and personally. So, and again, between building committees and all the other committees that your side of the house even has to deal with, people stepping up as well. So, so it was good to see that. Just with a couple of some of the social media and emails put out. Thank you, Pete, for putting those out on yours as well. To see that feedback come in, and even with the lengthy application process that the school committee asked for, they people were very thoughtful in their responses. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, and I mean the only other piece, again, reading through the applications, we all saw incredible service that they've provided over the years from what we saw, and we encourage you to pull papers and run in March 24th. Just a word, and unless there's questions, what I was going to do was review the process. There's a couple things that could happen. I tried to just think through various scenarios. I at least discussed it with Pete. Take questions on that to make sure.
You don't have an easy job here. Like, I don't envy this at all. This is,
That was
I
my
know,
brain crying as the different permutations.
It's a good problem to have,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
I'd much rather, it's a good problem to have, especially with the caliber and the folks that are standing, coming forward.
Yeah.
It beats it beats the alternative of hoping somebody might show up. But so the appointment will be made by a majority vote of the remaining school committee members. We have 4 and the 3 of you. with a roll call vote occurring at the end. So I thought through various scenarios, and I just want to kind of speak through what I have in mind. We would kick this off and ask if there was a motion to nominate any of the 7 eligible candidates, and then as typically ask if there was a second. At that point, I recognize you may want to know, are there other candidates? So what we would want to do is then hold that candidate for vote, and then ask if there are any other motions for candidates, and if there is a second. If there is, hold that candidate for a vote. If you do the numbers, it's feasible there could be a third motion and a second. So that way, if I think of it as the pool today, right now is 7. If we go through that one step, the pool would become, the largest it could be is 3 at that point.
Tim, you should explain why it can only be 3, because we can only nominate or second one person.
Yeah, that would be the intention, and I want to seek that clarification on that. So the idea would be you either nominate or second one. You're not nominating or seconding each one of them. We'll discuss that as a group. Let's just assume for the purposes of for a minute that we either have 2 or 3 candidates. It's possible we only have
Losing
1.
some. There's 7 of us voting.
Yes.
Is it just the 3 of us? Who's if there's only 3, I'm just not following the mechanics
You
here.
could nominate somebody, and someone would second it. That would
Okay.
eliminate whoever that was. Let's say you nominated, Pete seconded.
Yeah.
You 2 are done in the process.
Oh, it's both the person who nominates and the person who seconds.
That's how I heard it. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the a candidate needs a majority in order to serve the interim appointment.
Right, and something you just said maybe 5 minutes ago that actually triggered a change in who I was looking at for people is, if you have this short window of 2.5 months, and I think it was you just mentioned it, and budget is key, right? I literally in my head I'm like, oh, there's very good candidates here, but there's 2 that now jump to the table. I'm like, oh well, if you're looking at budget and it's not somebody that may choose to run or not run, but they can value, then that person to me is like, oh, then they just jumped up my list of they could add more value in this short window. And something that we've done, and I'm following your lead 100% here, but the way because we can't talk until we get to this table, we can't share who we like or dislike whenever we make selections. We tend to say, like tonight would be Gus starting first. Like, do you have an idea of who you're thinking, right? And it's not like this so you're locked and loaded on, but unfortunately we have to pick 1, 2, or 3 and kind of see who sits on top, and do we agree with that or disagree with that? So some kind of bouncing around. I don't know if I'm sensing we have any dialogue to that type. It's like whoever's going to start over there with the motion, we either all agree with that motion or we disagree. Is that the direction you're taking this, Tim?
No, I'm trying to.
Taking turns, so if like someone nominates, so Leo nominates candidate A, and I second candidate A. What he's saying is that we would no longer be supporting an additional candidate in that space. But the 5 of you are still left to nominate candidate B, but you would need a second in that space, right? And then the final piece would be candidate C and a second on candidate C.
So
And that's why he's stating that we would start with 7. We ultimately could end up with 3 if everybody felt strongly about a different candidate. To what you're saying though, if we all have a sense, if we all have a sense of like the same 1 or 2 candidates, we might not need that 3rd nomination.
Well, and I'm just trying to get it. I want to make sure we're helping you, right? Because this is your board, not our board, right? So you know what you need, you know what you're looking for, especially if it's a seat to fill potentially for only 2.5 months. So I just want to make sure that that we're all on the same page to help you. So if there's something you are genuinely looking for, I'd like to know that to make sure that we understand the needs for your committee for the next 2.5 months before it goes out for town election.
I actually appreciate the questions too, for the public as well, and for our own understanding too. Like I said, it's not a usual proceeding that we have all the time. So in particular, in a somewhat high-profile board in the town. So we do appreciate the questions on process and everything else, because I think it's good for people to hear it as well, and for me to hear it with you.
So here's the scenario that I'm picturing. It's only one possible. One person nominates someone, a second person seconds.
Yeah.
I'm guessing those 2 are therefore committed to that candidate. The next person nominates someone, the second one seconds, and I guess those two are committed to that candidate. The fifth and sixth, another person comes with a third candidate, and that gets second. The only one that doesn't get to do anything is the seventh person, but the seventh person is the one who's going to decide among the three who.
No. So that's where, that's why I wanted to just get the overarching process.
Good. Yeah.
And then we'll get into this, because we don't have to limit you to one or two candidates. The idea, here's what I was concerned about is Leo nominates candidate A. I second candidate A.
Mhm.
All in favor.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that.
Something may or may not happen.
Right.
I thought it made more sense to at least confirm what the pool is. The pool, if there's a nomination and a second, the maximum size would be 3.
Doesn't have to be.
And it could be 1. It could be, is there any nominations? Leo says A, I second, and say, I'd like to hold that. Are there any other nominations? And I'm not asking for that, right? But any one of us has the right to nominate. Any one of us can second.
But to answer your question is, the majority has to vote, so the person in this case has to have 4 votes. The appointed person.
Yeah. So bear with me, because I've thought through this multiple
Sure.
ways.
Yeah.
So it's the engineer in me. So suppose we come out of it and there's 2 candidates. One, as we typically do before a vote, we do ask members of our committee, are we prepared for a vote? There could be discussion. There could, people could say, I am prepared, I'm not prepared. That's what we typically do. Before we take a vote, we do open it up for public input, because whatever we shared between now and then before a vote, we take that public input, and then we would go forward for a vote. This is what at least Pete and I discussed, we would poll our group as to, the revised pool, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, who do you vote for? And then we would ask your group. And I would run that.
And I suggested that order because of the fact that, as Eileen said, I'm really feeling that my role is here to support the school committee. And so I thought it was important for the select board to hear from the school committee first before we weighed in on the people.
Right. So and Eileen, like your comment is, I don't know what the school committee, if we have one candidate that comes forward in second and more, the school committee doesn't bring more forward. It's clear where the school committee stands. That doesn't mean that you can't nominate and second a candidate.
No, I know, and I appreciate your approach to this.
Yeah.
With so many candidates, my head goes in the direction of ranked choice voting, where you sit there and you do the vote, and if you have several candidates, you drop the lowest one and then take another round on the votes that are left.
If I were a candidate and I want to serve, I want the public, I want to serve for the interim appointment, and I may want to serve for the future appointment. I don't think it's necessarily a great idea to have all kinds of commentary about how you feel about all 7 candidates. This is just where I sit. Right? I think that, there was some debate, even we had it, about an application and, with knowledge of the application and what's going on over the next 80 days, do the best job we can with that interim appointment and recognize it's an interim appointment.
Yep.
And Gus, I definitely go from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4. I looked at it in lots of ways. We did also ask around, it's not something, there's a crystal clear process. It's a roll call vote. We have a pool of 7. I think it would be easier for me to place my final vote, or if I were in your shoes and, I didn't know as much as we might, to know, okay, it's now a pool of 2. Right. But when we do take a vote, the idea would be, Leo, if the secondary pool is 2, do you vote for candidate A or B?
And let me ask, you don't have to do what I'm about to ask, but I'm curious, because we've done this when we've selected people. Well, you know what, this person's a good fit for the following reasons. because like even when we just recently did the most recent appointment with John Maderos for the school building committee, like we looked at the person that left, we picked because of a certain age bracket that was there. He had building experience, so it was like, you know what, we put thought behind why we selected who we selected, but all the other people that put their names in were fantastic. So it was tough, but it was like, okay, why did we do it? We did it for that, not because the other people weren't qualified in any way, stretch, or means. So that's why tonight this
has happened twice with us, though, and it's been fortuitous. What we basically did is go through the drill individually and say, and yeah, there's 3 that I like, and it worked out 2 times now that the 3 that we liked, we all liked at least 2 out of the 3. We all liked at least 2 out of the 3. So suddenly it's like, well, I like 3 of them. You like 2 of them. I'm fine with whichever one of the 2 you like because I like them already. So we didn't know that going in that we would be in that great a sync.
Right.
But that was how that worked, and that was fortuitous.
So all I'm asking is if when we select, I'm intrigued as to when it all comes down. I want to make sure that we are helping the need that you have, as we said before, especially for this unique window. So
right.
I'll leave it at
So
that.
I think the way I was looking at it was first let's nominate and see if there's a second. See what the size of the pool would be.
Okay.
And then ask if we're prepared for a vote. And sometimes when we do this within our own meetings, you know, a big part of my job is helping the consensus building.
Mhm.
Are we prepared for a vote? What feedback do we gain? Are we prepared for a vote? And in order to be prepared for a vote, if it, you know, if somebody nominates or feels real strongly about a candidate, that's up to them to share. You know, I'm not saying don't. I'm just not. I'm not trying to solve a problem I don't have yet. Right? Like I am aware, like that. You know, I didn't think it was a great idea for whoever gets nominated all in favor without any visibility to would there be others who are nominated. And we did, you know, this is consistent with a roll call vote.
Okay.
I think the only thing, and I also did check, there's nothing in the policy that says you can't nominate or second more than one candidate. So if everyone's amenable to it, and I did write it down, the way I would word it is, can the elected officials, each elected official may nominate or second a single candidate. And if everybody agrees on that, I would like to take that as a motion for this process tonight.
I certainly agree with that.
I'll suggest something different. And I agree with what we've all said, that we're here to support you. And I'm coming from a standpoint of a complete public perception of legitimacy of how we do this. So it's the reason I'm antsy about an inside lane is because it potentially is something that wouldn't look like that. I will give you an alternative, and you can just reject it, and I'll let it go. I'd have each one of us have an opportunity to nominate someone. If you don't have anyone, like right now, I've got 3 names that work for me based on my analysis. If those 3 names get nominated, I don't want to nominate anybody else. And the only issue would be if someone nominates someone, they have to get second. If there's nobody else in the group that's going to second, then that nomination is made, but it doesn't go anywhere. And so you could potentially have, we all spread out, you could wind up with 7 candidates. I don't think that's going to happen. But there's this kind of weird irregularity about either somebody's making the motion or they're using their vote to second or they're not doing anything at all. And I'm just having a hard time picturing how that, I don't know how that plays. I honestly don't know how that would play out, but it feels random and unpredictable to me, where if everybody says, here's the person I'd not. So in other words, each person's nominating someone that's their kind of the one person out of the 7 they'd most like to see run. If it doesn't get seconded, then it's gone. If it does get seconded, then we know there's some pool. For me, there's 3 people that for sure I'm good with.
I see where you're going. It's almost like if once I commit, I'm done and I can't vote anymore. It's like, well, but if you bring up somebody and we listen to why, it's like, well, you know what? Then that's not a bad option. So
I think that's what you're saying is, because I still would think it's worthwhile to see if there's a second. Let's say if I nominate candidate A, and nobody seconds candidate A.
Yeah, you've used your nomination, but it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, would I still be eligible to second somebody?
I would think so.
Sure.
Like,
And I would,
Yeah.
I would think that would.
Yeah,
make
you gotta have
sense.
to vote for him, sure, yeah,
Right.
sure.
I think the theory is of saying, and I would think about the words, but to saying may only nominate a single candidate. The theory would be, I nominate, you nominate candidate A, there's no second. You nominate candidate B, there's no, we can do that, I guess.
But you won't vote until you know how many candidates are nominated.
Right.
It's because otherwise, then it's a question of who nominates, who's the fastest one on the trigger. Right.
Or if I get seconded, looks like we're waiting until March, so.
Right, so the problem we might not have is there might only be one I don't know. There might be one.
Well, it's gonna be it's like when we do it the way we do it. It is funny how like it's very rare that we're that far off. So I look to you to see who are you interested in, and I bet you 10-1 it's not far off from what we looked at and thought. You know what? If budgets are important, and now that you've told me you're actually okay if someone just really kind of want to get their feet wet and may not choose to run like that, I'd like to see whoever does this actually want the intention of doing it for a 2-year stint. But that's just my 2 cents. But it is what it is.
I think we want the person that is selected tonight to want to run.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's important to us as well.
So in my case, I've already stated, I actually, there are some, nobody said they didn't want to run. There's a couple that sound like they're
Yeah, I hope they
trying
all
to
do.
figure it out.
Right.
I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
So I want to make sure I'm just playing.
That's just me.
I'm playing it out. So take a round of nominations.
Or each person has they have the opportunity to nominate someone, or they can just defer and say, no, the person I want has already been nominated.
Or do you want to say
Yeah,
either
I
one,
think-
your top 1, top 2, or top 3? Like, if you wanted to see your top 2, just get a feel for it.
Yeah,
if
I
there's a
don't-
pool where we're all like, we get where you're coming from, again, that's how we've done it. I don't want to overstep, but I feel like I am right now. So, Tim.
The way I looked at it is, who is the candidate I feel strongest about? Part of my role is to try to gain, consensus from the group. I wanted to hear who is nominated. Going into it, my position was I'd like to hear if there's anyone seconding those candidates. Because there are strict rules when we do these things. And if we stay at 7 candidates, and we stuck there,
I don't think that's going to happen. I think my heart is I have a feeling we're all kind of bubbling around to the same few, and then it's a matter of finalizing.
I think we're complicating something that isn't that complicated.
That's
So
coming.
I think that if we just go ahead.
Were you an engineer as well?
No.
Not-
But I should have been probably.
I'm not trying to make, it's an engineering joke, I'm sorry.
This
I was-
conversation may have changed a few minds.
Yes, that's the wrong. So, I don't think in that case too, because I wouldn't ask for a motion. I would just say,
Ask for nomination.
yeah, I just want to make sure I'm saying this correctly as we go through this. So we would ask for nominations. We're not asking for seconds. Those that are nominated, we would ask for nominations of that revised pool and ask for seconds. Is there a second for that candidate? In the event that there's more than one candidate, and then we would hold for vote. Because what I'm saying is that we do this first round, and then what?
So the statute's very simple. There's not a lot of detail to it. You're adding a whole layer of gloss, which is fine. Whatever works for you, but I would suggest at some point you just open it on your side for nominations and see what happens.
And that nomination needs to be seconded.
That's not a legal requirement.
I appreciate your input, and I may need to, here's where I'm also trying to be mindful of. Ask for nominations and then see what happens, and then at some point, we haven't agreed on a process amongst the 7 of us. And then however a candidate is selected, somebody's questioning the validity of that candidate for months or years to come.
It can't be because it's a roll call vote and it's a majority vote, so it's pretty cut and dry.
I think the only issue is if there's multiple candidates.
So
that
if I
people are
take
voting, you
nominations,
get
and
a-
I'm not trying to overcomplicate this, if I take nominations and there are 4 candidates.
Somebody
at
gets an
that point-
absolute.
excuse me. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying, I've thought through this many ways. So we make nominations and there are 4 candidates. At that point, the pool is 4. Do we then, okay, now we have a candidate, a pool of 4, and we discuss what the process is from there?
If somebody gets an absolute majority, it's over. If they don't, you would eliminate the low person and discontinue until you have a survivor.
Okay, so what I'm trying to avoid is if that becomes a pool of 4, we then say all in favor of candidate A.
Now, it's a roll call vote. You've got to go each person and tally.
Each person, do you vote for one of those 4? And, right. I would prefer knowledge that a candidate has a second.
That's
It
up
would
to you.
make, to me, it would make sense, then say, okay, now we have a pool of 4. Is there a second for candidate A?
But yeah.
Is there a second? If there's no second for candidate A, because what I don't want to get is to a point where we don't have a majority. We have 3 candidates and it's 2, 2,
I think we will.
3, 1. At that point.
Yep.
Right. So, Mark, please, my tone is just more, I've thought about, okay, what happens in that second layer? I also, I don't do this as frequently. Typically, it's all in favor, aye. And so what I was also trying to clarify is, no, state your preferred candidate. So I think it would be round 1 of nominations, see how many we get. Round 2 nominations and a second. See how many we get. At that point, we have a pool and ask for who's your preferred candidate within that pool.
And personally, for me, I'm looking to see where you guys are going, right? I mean, I don't want to be taking the lead on this because it's your committee. So I'm very intrigued to see where the 4 school committee members are leaning. And my gut is we're not too far off.
So Tim, but the one other, just to carry that process, ultimately, the end point is 1 nominee gets 4 votes because it requires 4. So to your point, we're going to have to get down to a point where 4 people come together around 1 nominee. There could be 4 candidates as long as 4 people are homed in on 1. And that's, I'm not sure I'm just trying to help you think this one through.
Correct.
What we're talking about here, when you get
Possible you
past that
nominate-
second round, how do you get to 4? For sure.
Right, it's possible somebody nominated 1 candidate, nobody else seconds, at least then the pool is 3.
Yep.
Right, so when I ask everybody for their vote.
In my guess, at least for us, when we get that, at some point, we go into more of a mode around flexibility. Okay, if I know that's one you like, that's one I think is fine. Maybe it wasn't even my first choice, but I'm willing to come out. So that's how we process it.
Yeah, I think.
And that's actually how we selected the school building candidate. We kind of talked it through and we realized, okay, you know what? Understanding what the opening is, blah, blah, okay, you know what, this makes sense. So it was just a dialogue, and once we all flushed it out, we're like, okay, it was.
Yeah, I actually liked our process as well for the
Okay.
selecting of the select board or the SBC. And this is different because 2 committees are coming together, right? So there's familiarity we have that we don't have. I would ask too, and again, without questioning Mark, you and I, Michelle, walked through this process with our council. We did ask our council, I'm not sure if Mark or I'm sorry, if Andy is here. So I would just like to make sure, and I could maybe take a step back and just make sure that process, if there's any issues that you see. And we can.
Andy, if you're going to talk, you need to use a microphone so the people that are home watching on TV can, that's fine.
Yep.
And so this is the attorney, the representative. Correct. Okay. I knew I'd recognize him. I'm like, why do I know that gentleman?
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Yes, that's fine.
School committee's attorney. I would echo what Mark said a moment ago. I think the statute is fairly flexible in terms of process. It speaks to nominees. It doesn't even require seconds. You can, I think, add that to your process if you want to, but you're not required to. It just requires nominations, and then at that point, a simple majority decides who's selected.
Okay.
Thank
It doesn't, and it doesn't address, if you don't get in other words, if there's 4 nominees and you don't, simple majority.
We still need to gain 4.
Majority of 4.
The language in the
So
statute
what
speaks to a majority, so if it's,
So it doesn't, so what I'm getting at is if you had 3 candidates and no candidate got 4, does it address what you then have to do to winnow the field?
it does not. No.
I think,
And Tim, I guess the challenge that I have, not challenge, you guys are a board of 4 or 5, so you can go 2 and 2 and just have a conversation and not break it. We never can, so that's what's hard. Is you guys might have had a talk and it's nothing illegal, right? Because your majority is 3 or more. We can't do that at all. So we are coming from this blind. I have no idea what these guys are thinking. So that's why we do tend to talk it out, because there is no chance for us to talk until we're here on a Tuesday night.
If you had a deadlock, if you will, on a first round, and you wanted to have a discussion among yourselves as to the pluses and minuses of candidates, however awkward that may be, there's nothing to foreclose you doing that.
yeah, I had a whiteboard where like that could happen, right? Somebody could, choose not to vote, right? And I would just suggest that we cross that bridge when it's necessary. That's where I think, I just think I'm not sure what will happen. And I don't necessarily want to, I'm thrilled with the candidates that we have, and as I said earlier, I want that to be positive, and I want them to consider running again, running for the election regardless.
Absolutely.
This is the interim appointment.
So Tim, as the chair, I'm asking you, do you want seconds, or do you want to just go through a nomination process?
So the advantage of asking the second time through, the advantage of asking for seconds is the maximum size of the pool is 3.
How about the first time?
No, I'm okay. I mean, I'm hearing from everybody that they don't want to do that. So, and I guess we can still discuss if it becomes 5 candidates, then we can.
I think that's healthy. Again, if we are encouraging people to run, the last thing we want to do is stiff arm somebody right now, right? Like that's the worst thing we can send. So this is going to be transparent as we can be. Again, I think my gut is this is going to shake up easier than I think we're all struggling. To a certain extent, just know what you're looking for. If budget is a concern and trying to crunch things down in the next 2.5 months.
Well, I think more aside from budget is the budget experience. Just going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, school budget experience is a different animal sometimes. And there's different, but everyone's had different experiences. So I think it's just one of the ones exposing someone to is one that it's good to have the taste of, I guess, if you will.
Okay, let's go.
All right.
No, that's helpful, and Andy, it is helpful. Even the one we always ask for seconds.
You do not have to. No.
Good to know. Okay, so let me just make sure I word this correctly, because this is before any vote. But so I would like to entertain a motion to nominate a candidate for the interim school committee position until March 26th, or whenever the next scheduled election actually occurs.
Yep.
So what I said is there a motion to nominate any candidates?
Did you want to name a name?
Are you opening?
So I'm waiting for you to say a name, and then I'm assuming whether.
I'm opening it up to the 7 elected officials on the select.
You'll
board.
entertain nomination. You'll entertain nomination.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Diana Frischella for the interim appointment to the Medfield School Committee.
And that was that was number 1 on my list. So just to let you know.
Just want to have a pen. Actually, I'll just use my computer. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to know.
1 second, I'm just writing back there. So Michael Radbaki.
Yep.
And just, and I'm just doing this in my own notes, and Michelle nominated Diana Friscella. So Michael Rybaki and Diana Friscella.
Yep, I think those are good names.
Are there any other nominations? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll nominate Kristen Martin.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Pete, you good?
I'm not going to nominate anybody. I think it's their.
That's what I'm saying, so you're good. So I just want to make sure that you.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
of course. That's why I'm not saying anything.
Well, there's times you haven't responded when, then you say it later. Just want to make sure.
Okay. Are there any other? No, there's no other nominations. Okay, so now we at least know where we are. Ready? That's good. So there's a pool of 3, which is better, which is good. Yeah, the candidates that we brought forward, Will brought forward Michael Rybaki. Michelle brought forward Diana Friscella? Frischella, I'm sorry. And I believe Gus brought forward Kristen Martin. And I'm just putting that's Will. Okay. And then I would ask, I think just based on that, do we feel comfortable taking this to a vote at this stage, or is there a discussion around this?
Yes.
Call vote.
So roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Excuse me?
Roll call vote.
Okay, and consistent with our policies within the school committee, before we bring something to a vote, and I appreciate the public and the listening to us as we walk through it, we would open it up for public comment in the event that there is any public comment, and just ask that you follow the same rules that we shared when we opened up the meeting. So is there any public comment?
Nothing on Zoom.
Nothing online.
Any public comment? Okay. So with that, I'd like to take it forward with a vote. Again, we're going to have the school committee identify their preferred candidate first, and then move it on to you. So Michelle?
Like to nominate Diana Frischella, or vote for Diana Frischella for the interim appointment to the Medfield School Committee. Michelle Kirkby.
Leo?
Yeah, Brown, Diane Frischella.
Okay. Will? I think
I'd like to vote for Michael Rybaki.
okay. Tim Knight, I would like to vote for Diana Frischella. Did I say it correctly? I am in trouble. I would like to vote for Diana, Tim Knight.
You want Gus next or Pete?
So you should, the select board should call their.
Oh, I was going to let Tim poll us, because it's his meeting.
You still
you
say
said.
combined meeting.
So Pete, I would defer it to you to.
All right, Mr. Murby?
Yeah.
Vote for Michael Rybaki.
Eileen?
I vote for Diane Frischella.
I vote for Diana Frischella.
And I'm just taking this down. So
6-2.
5-2.
5-2.
Yeah, so that's my total is 5 votes for Diana, 2 votes for Michael.
Correct.
Correct.
So with that, I'm not sure I think the roll call would say that Diana is the 5th member of the school committee.
So do they motion
Yeah,
that?
you just declare her as the winner.
So I think you guys then would motion that and confirm it amongst you guys, right? Is that?
What?
Is there no motion?
more,
then?
you've
Okay.
already, that's it.
Okay, good. All right.
She's a school committee member now?
Committee member, right?
Where is she? Let's get her up here.
I'm not sure it's Diana.
She's not
Was
attending her
she-
meetings.
So
Oh,
you
she
do
is.
you do have to move to adjourn your meeting and a roll
It's a
call
long
for that.
discussion to get a quick vote like that.
Well, that's what I kind of figured. I was like, we're beating. So is
I-
she here? Is Diana in the room?
Yes, I think Diana's here.
Thank you for stepping forward.
Thank you.
Yeah. Diana, and sincerely everybody who Thank you for stepping forward. Two, I appreciate walking through the process. I think that is as important as the outcome. Anyone else has a little bit of a popsicle headache from that walking through that, I apologize. But I think it was a healthy process.
So Tim, I would just say that I'm very appreciative of you basically took the lead on organizing me and Christine and Frank and Michelle and you and I have had multiple meetings about this, but it was basically your leadership that brought us all together and made this work so smoothly. So thank you.
Yes, I hope my leadership will drive a simpler process at the next one.
Cool.
No, I think that's great. I appreciate it. And unless there's any other
No, I think we just have to close the meeting.
yeah, so,
Second.
okay, all in favor? Motion, Leo, Tim Knight,
Kirkby, aye.
Will, Tim Knight, aye, yes. Our school
Thank you,
committee
folks,
meeting
for
is
coming.
adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Likewise.
coming too.
Everyone that put paper, I genuinely appreciate. And you know what? March election's right around the corner.
Thanks for the
Thanks,
pen.
Michelle. Thanks, Tim.
Return that. I did have my computer, but it.
Is that, is that Michael right there? Is that Michael?
Yes.
All right, it's fun. I actually played golf with your mom and dad.
No way.
I did. All right, we need to connect.
Fantastic. Where and when? You know?
Labor Day weekend 2 years ago down at the Cape Club.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go there all the time with the kids. That's fun.
Okay, so our next
Thanks, Tim. Take care.
appointment is,
I think this was fun to watch. I have to go home like.
All our meetings are fun.
All right. Well, we'll see you pull papers, hopefully in March.
I'm thinking about it.
All right, good.
I'm thinking about it,
Good.
for sure. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
so our next appointment is getting back to Jean Minio, review of Belfort's chapel renovation plans and elevations. Thank you for waiting us out, Jean.
So one of our consultants had to sign off, but I think if you can promote Sean
Yeah, Sean's
Redfern.
still there, yeah.
And will he be a co-host so he can share his screen?
I'll make him a
Okay.
co-host and he'll be able to.
So Sean is our project architect and he'll walk you through the plans and the elevations and any questions you might have. Hi, Sean.
Unmute.
Can't hear you yet.
Can you connect the volume?
Mhm.
Familiar with the existing chapel that's permanent in Belfort Center. What we're looking to do is to create a 300-seat theater in the main chapel space, and then off to the right is the infirmary, and in the infirmary will be practice studios for students. We're looking to build an addition in the middle of the two buildings to connect them. That connector addition will contain all of the services for the building, bathrooms, all the mechanical equipment. And then we're also going to be looking to add an addition on the back of the building. Back of the building here, which will have actors' dressing rooms, as well as loading for the stage of the chapel. I'm going to go through some plans with you all. If anyone has questions during the presentation, please feel free to just ask away. So this is the connector piece will be the main entry lobby into the building. As I mentioned, it will include the bathrooms, include a catering kitchen. Off to the right-hand side will be practice rooms, band rooms I guess for rent chain or for use. And then the main space will be a multi-purpose room with a concession area in the building. And behind the stage will be dressing rooms, actors' green rooms. As you move up through the space, there'll be a balcony level and that will also contain a concessions area and some bathrooms. There'll be a retractable seating riser in the main space that will allow you to either have a tiered seating system for theater, or you could also push the tiered seating back and have 300 people standing room or sitting on the main floor. On the second floor of the infirmary will be more band rooms and practice rooms. And that is it. The basement level and the space will mainly some mechanical and storage space and below the chapel, and then as well as some dressing rooms at the back of the stage area, and then again more rehearsal rooms over in the infirmary. The exterior of the building will be looking to restore the masonry and the slate roofs of both buildings. We'll be adding an addition in the middle, which will be clad with sink panels and storefront glass. At the rear, we'll be looking to add another addition. As I mentioned, this will be a brick addition with a zinc roof on it. Again, just more images of the restoration work that we're going to be doing on the building. All of this work will be done to the National Park Service standards. Just some renderings of the exterior of the building, the main entrance. And then this is the back entry off the main green, or the east green, I should say. That's it. Jean, do you have anything to add?
Any questions?
Is there anything we should be asking you?
It looks beautiful.
Gus, do you have any comments,
No,
questions?
no, I mean, we've, at least in my case, I've seen some of this, although it's nice to see it a little further developed. I would, at this stage, I don't think I know of any particular issues that I should be asking you about, beyond basic things like funding and things like that. I think it's good. I think it looks great. I think it's gonna be a great thing.
And this is, I'm assuming you're at this stage so that you can continue to go out to your fundraising group to show them that this is what they're putting their money towards. It's no longer just kind of a pencil sketch this is beautiful. This is right down to the.
Yeah, I mean, we're at about 75% completion on the construction documents, which is a stage that we took it before the planning board for preliminary review, as well as the Medfield Historic Commission review, just to see if there were questions or concerns at this point before they're finalized.
And when I look at the structure and I look at the architectural plans, you're using as much of the core building as you can. Unlike Trinity, that's being held to higher standards because they're using the National Park historic tax credits.
So are we.
Oh, sorry. So you then are being held to the same type of
Yes, we
standards
are.
where like the windows that you're choosing and things like that, you just can't willy-nilly. It's
Correct.
Okay. So you are using historic tax credits to help.
Yep, we're expecting about 5 million total from state and federal.
Okay. So some of the changes that I see in the building today, will you be able to make those changes? Because I am only asking these questions. I know when I walked with Jim from Trinity, he said, Eileen, they will bicker if we try to swap out anything. Like it needs to stay as true as possible. It's like as silly as it is. Like, so when I look at the picture that's exposed right now and I see like the Bell Forge wall and all, like you can do those type of additions without changing the feel or put ramps and decks and whatever without again changing the original design of the building.
You're talking about the addition in between the two buildings in particular?
Well, the addition, and then it just looks like there's some slight modifications to the outside of the building. So any of those modifications, those are allowed?
Do you want to address that, Sean? I don't think there are many modifications to the exterior.
Or maybe.
Historic buildings.
Okay.
And we're updating them in terms of MEP systems, but we're restoring the windows and are providing historic replica windows where we
Okay.
can. We're also replacing the slate roof in kind, and we're also going to be restoring the masonry. So the additions in the middle of in the middle and at the back, the Park Service doesn't want those additions to look, look historic. They want them to be, of their own period.
Ah, okay.
Looking for us to match, sort of match the building, but to kind of play off the building and be something that someone could come to the building 20 years later and be like, oh, I see that's an addition. Oh, this is the historic piece.
Okay, okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
So, I heard the word kitchen, and is the kitchen in the basement? I didn't see where the kitchen.
It's in the main level,
It's on the main
behind
level?
the entry, the new entry. It's a
By
catering
the
kitchen.
bathrooms or something?
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
but it's just a catering kitchen. It's not a full kitchen.
okay. You'll build that somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. The restaurant.
Sean, maybe it's a question for you. The national park standards that you have to comply with, I'm kind of curious about the level of insulation, for instance, on a structure like this. Are you allowed to add insulation to it to make it energy efficient?
In certain areas, we can attempt to add insulation. We're going to be insulating the basement walls of the chapel, and we're going to be putting insulation in the roof of the chapel. The main space in the chapel, the seating chamber, we will not be adding insulation there because we'll just be replacing the plaster that's there because it would affect the overall look of the detailing in the space if we were to add to those walls there. In the infirmary, however, we are adding insulation to all the walls there. Not a significant amount, just an R10 amount insulation because we don't want to change the dew point in the brick in the building. If we change the dew point on the brick too much, it'll push water vapor to the outside of the building, and then the freeze thaw of the water vapor will destroy the masonry. It'll start to spall.
Oh, okay.
So we are doing as much as we can to make them, a modern, updated building.
But there are different standards for the actual performance standard versus the infirmary, apparently. You can do more in terms of insulation in the infirmary, you're saying.
Well, it's just because we're not dealing with all the detailing around the windows, and we have the trusses, the main trusses in the space, the main seating chamber. If we were to add wall to that, you would start to lose the truss and the detail of those trusses. So we would not be allowed to do that under the Park Service.
So it's just a personal. I'm puzzled because it looks to me like there's a metal structure in the chapel itself that was added to hold the place up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're going to have to deal with or leave, or what do you do with that?
Sean?
It's going to be maintained.
Yeah.
It was put in place because the trusses weren't designed properly, excuse me, and it was pushing out the exterior walls.
Yeah, so you need it
Used as
structurally and it's
horizontal
part of your
trusses to try
history,
to
so
pull it all
you'll
back in.
keep it because it's part of your history. So you say you're at 75% completion of your construction drawing, so you're pretty far along.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk to residents about your financial? I know that you're getting a lot of money for historic tax credits, so do you want to talk about that or not? It's up to you.
I'll just say that we have crossed the 50% threshold in our fundraising so far, so we are
Congratulations.
just over that. We have 13 million pledged of a $25 million goal, but the project is a $30 million project. So 25 million is still a working goal because of the historic tax credits.
Yep. Okay. Anything else for us, or?
Nope.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the? Seeing none, we're ready to move on then. Thank you,
All right.
Jean.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jean.
John.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. I think that our next item is under action items. Vote to approve amendments to contract with Woodard and Curran for the water treatment plant construction project. Welcome back, Mo.
Sure.
Thank you for bearing with us.
Patience of a saint.
No, it's all good.
Did we get the right school committee?
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
Thank you. Great politic.
I have two contract amendments for our water treatment plant project. Both of these amendments went for approval through the Permanent Building Committee, and their approval for your consideration for approval for these. One is our OPM, which is our project manager for this particular project. They're looking to, the original contract was supposed to be, the original project was supposed to be ended in February. Because of delays in the supply chain and a lot of other things that happened, it's gone another 9-10 months. We're in the final stages right now. We're in the closing of it with the startup of everything. So there are extra costs that are due to the different engineering firms for this, and that's what these are. One is for the owner's project manager, the OPM, and one is for the SCADA project. That's the kind of the brains behind all the alarm systems and everything to hook it to the rest of the town. So, like I said, both of these have gone through the Permanent Building Committee, and we're looking for your approval for these two amendments.
Okay. Gus, questions, comments?
So I'll talk about both of them at the same time.
Sure.
So the one with the OPM, that's all, I didn't have any questions on that. I kind of understand that's sort of a time and materials thing, and it's taken a more, this was a good explanation. The one for the SCADA, I'm always around contract management issues here. This sounds like work they've already done, because if I'm following it correctly, because the statements, like under phase 1, it says hardware and professional subcontractor services were procured. So past tense, when I go to the next page under startup engineering services were provided. My observation on this is that, so I think we're approving something that has already been done, which effectively it doesn't, we're not making any decisions unless we want to sit there and open ourselves up to some sort of bad faith contracting. If I'm following this right, this is after the fact. The first one's after the fact. The second one sounds like maybe it's not. Is that correct?
I'm sure they did some already because of certain things that chain of as far as timing.
Right.
But I'm not exactly sure of everything.
So that's fine. My basic point is that some of this has already happened before we've actually approved it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not giving you a hard time about that. I'm basically raising the question around contracting. What we do here to approve things that's already been done, unless we want to start a fight with somebody, we're not doing anything meaningful here. We're just sort of stamping something, and it makes it look like we made a decision when we didn't. It seems to me like it would make sense in contracts in the future that there be a certain bucket, which is the contingency task, I would rather have approved the funding when the contract was let, and have you in charge of, these are the kinds of things, you don't need us to be doing it.
Right.
If it's something that needs to be done, the money should be there where you just release it. So it's not a slam. I don't have a problem with either one of these, other than I'm making an observation. This one that we are approving, we're not doing anything. We're just choosing not to start a fight about something. I would rather find us having contracts that wouldn't force you to come here and sit for 2 hours to watch all this stuff, because you're really the one that's got the knowledge and the authority. So if there's a way for us to build that stuff in when we're really approving a contract, that gives you the flexibility to give additional funding when that's justified. And if stuff comes to us, it should be more like maybe the second one, which is it's coming to us before, because there's no negotiation. There's nothing to negotiate here. We're just going to say sure. And it's just wasting our time. It's wasting your time. So it's an observation. If there's a way for us to start moving in that direction, I'd like to see us do it, because
it's difficult with these large projects like this because it's just so many moving parts at one time. I understand
But I mean, I think it would be easier for you, so it may be that you at least can come in with an idea that says, listen, here's this, this, and this, and I want to actually have the funding approved for this plus 15%. I'm not going to release that unless it's necessary. And then you're in charge of it rather than us doing meaningless votes
Right.
after the fact.
Nope, understood.
Okay. But that was my only.
Eileen?
No, mine's off the wall question. I was intrigued by, so where do they actually install the antenna hardware and all that? Is it within the water treatment plant? Is it up on one of the towers? How do?
Well, there are antennas on top of the towers.
Yep.
That read what's going on, but so there's a combination of both at the treatment plant and up on the towers.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And I would like to request if I could get authorization to sign off on these amendments if they do decide to put a signature page or just initial these. If that's okay with you guys.
I'm happy to do that.
We're happy to have you do that.
Okay.
Great.
So you want to do a motion then, Eileen, please?
All right, so we will motion to approve the amendment to the contract with Woodward and Curran for the water treatment plant construction project.
And authorize Mo to sign.
Oh, and authorize Mo to sign the
And to
amendment.
be clear, that's 2 amendments that we're approving, not just one. It's 2 documents.
Oh, yes.
One
Yeah.
18,000, one
Vote
43,000.
to- Yep.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Can I ask you
Do
about
we-
the snow and ice one now?
Yes, 14.
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, please.
So this award letter that I had written up for the selectmen, all the information is on here. If you could vote for this award letter instead of having to separate everything out, because it's all separated on here.
Yep.
Just makes it easier on you guys so that you don't have to. There's no confusion.
We appreciate
Right.
that.
Sure. We did get a good price this year. We're probably the lowest in the state for the salt.
Congratulations, then.
So we have a 30-town consortium, so
That's great.
it's 30 towns are benefiting from it. So
Thanks to you.
no, it's
Well, you started it when you came here, so it's thanks to you. So any questions, Gus?
Nope.
Eileen?
No, motion?
Yep, please.
All right, motion to vote to award the bids for the 2023-2024 joint purchase of salt. Award Eastern Minerals as the primary awardee of the rock salt bid with Morton Salt Company
Yes.
as a secondary
Excuse me.
awardee.
He wants you to incorporate simply that.
Just the
as-
letter.
as
Oh,
set
just the
out in
letter.
that letter
yeah, just in
dated-
case
Oh,
there's any kind of discrepancy of what.
Oh, so
how you-
just, okay, motion to award the bids to the joint purchase of
as
20.
as listed.
As-
Set
as
forth
listed in the letter.
memo
Okay,
on- in
got
the
it.
materials.
Thank
got
you.
it.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mo.
Thank
I
you.
think you can go home now. Thank you.
Done, that one.
Let's see, we have a vote, number 9 is on our action items, is vote to accept Dish Wireless LLC's bid for the Mount Nebo Water Tower Wireless Facilities site request for proposal.
So we have 3 spots for antenna leases available up on the Mount Nebo water tower. All 3 were occupied until recently when 2 of the carriers merged, that being AT&T and Sprint. So there's one that is, I know I said available, but there's 3 that exist and 1 that is vacant. So a few weeks ago, we put that out for an RFP, received 1 response. And so tonight we're asking to accept this bid and then hoping to finalize some of the details on the lease with Dish, and hopefully have that for you on December 19th. Both myself, Mark, David Maxon, and Maria De La Fuente have spoken with Dish and are confident we can work through some of the exceptions that they noted in their response. And Mark, don't know if you want to chime in here, but the terms that we've proposed are similar to those for the existing leases that we have, not only at the Nebo Tower, but on the State Hospital Tower as well.
The real driver here is that they have to submit engineering plans for peer review by us to confirm that, because it's a water tower, that the water tower is not going to be in any way implicated, either from wind loads or how are they going to make the attachments, et cetera, et cetera. So we want that done between now and the time we finalize a lease, because that would trigger time period. So with approval, because they're a wireless carrier, and there's a short period under the federal law for them to get their approval.
Gus, questions?
No questions.
Eileen?
Yeah, well, the only question I have, and I think I threw this out prior to your time here, Frank, but I threw it to you guys when we did Comcast renewal. So where I see proposed escalator is 2.5% over the next 20 years. My only concern is if Dish bumps up the residential bills by 4, 5, or 6, right? And I almost feel like we should be mirroring what they're hitting our residents for. Because if there's a spike in a Dish bill, then we should be seeing a spike as a return from them. So instead of just flat, because I can almost guarantee, at least I'm gonna speak for my Comcast, my bill's never flat. Like if I looked at 20-year window, it's wildly more expensive than it was. And I look at, we start at 45, and 20 years later, it's like 71. I'm just curious if we have any wiggle room as to mirror watching what Dish is doing to our residents.
So we had, when we issued the RFP, we requested that any respondents include an escalator of 2.5% as a minimum.
Okay.
Dish was the only respondent or responder, and the 2.5% is the same escalator that we use in the other leases, both at Mount Nebo and at the state hospital.
Right. And I brought this up again before your time, and then it was like, well, that's what we've done. I'm like, I get that's what's been done, but I also think in fairness, that we can watch it.
There's a somewhat of a disconnect there, because this is based on the overall rental market for sites and all. So it does, I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't kind of, it's not a cause and effect. The rent is determined by what's the going rent out there in the marketplace, either private, either municipal, private, what have you, which includes escalators. And whatever they do with their customers is a separate thing, understanding that this is not a cable carrier either. This is
And the rent was pretty
wireless.
good. It was like 45,000 a year, and because it used to be 30,000 a year, so
Right.
we're doing better.
Well,
and they've actually, in other communities where they were set very high, they've come down. The market's very, very volatile. The players change constantly.
Sure.
Dish came from nowhere. It's the first time I've experienced them.
Well, they used to be under AT&T, and then AT&T spun them off. So so it's bare minimum 2.5, but we have the ability as we move through this contract to look at that and.
Not with them, because they responded to our RFP. Your choice is not to accept it because they didn't exceed, or they didn't meet the criteria that you were looking for.
So we set it at 2.5.
We set the minimum that bidders could reply with at 2.5%.
Right.
As the escalator.
So if there's been some competition, you might have seen somebody one up somebody else. That's happened before, but there just isn't that many independent players out there anymore.
So is there a look-back window in this contract that would allow for, let's say, year 5 to see where we're at? And is 2.5 enough? Is it, or are we, in theory, locked in for the next 20 years at 2.5?
I believe it's a 5-year contract with.
Yeah, they
5-year
want
option
the
for
ability to get out, frankly. So it's not a long term.
Okay.
They probably aren't accepting changes at the 5-year mark, are they?
It's a 5-year initial term, and then there's increments. So,
Yeah,
and they don't
have
want
right
it
to
longer. They
extend.
want the ability to walk away without a lot of penalties.
And so the lease itself would still be, is still subject to negotiation. So I think the term of the lease, as I said, right now, the sort of the draft that we included in the RFP is a 5-year lease with options for a 5-year renewal.
Okay.
So in theory, again, that's all up for negotiation. So we could do a 2-year lease with a 2-year optional renewal or something like that. That's just throwing random numbers out there.
Okay.
So I mean, if we have any preferences on that, we could include that into the I guess our mindset as we head into the negotiation of the lease itself.
Okay. I'm going to do a little bit of homework, and I'll ping you in a day or two. I just have someone I'm going to give a quick call to.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. And I'm happy. I can send you whatever else we have for the existing contracts as well.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Frank, my question is the water tower full at this point with antennas, or do we have space available for more antennas?
This would be the last vacancy available right
How about at the hospital?
now. Also full.
We're full. Good.
There's only
Okay.
one carrier on the state hospital tower, and I have to defer to Mo or the team at Environmental Partners as to why we can only have one versus three. The different.
It's a different configuration. It's a completely different configuration.
Okay, do we have a motion then?
Right, so we
So,
will,
given what, Eileen, if you're doing stuff, are we approving this then?
Yes, we're asked to approve it.
so can we push this to the 19th and I just make a phone call to someone just to check on something? Because if we vote to approve it, then there's no reason to make a
Right.
phone call, right?
That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, we so
Yeah,
we have.
if you accept their proposal, you're certainly accepting the major components. So if you've got some question, I would.
Yeah, can we push
I
to the
would
19th?
agree
It
with
just makes more
deferring.
sense.
All right, so we'll hold on that then. Number 10, vote to approve request for the 9th Annual Hunters Run 5K and 1 Mile Fun Run. Do we have a motion on that?
That's a no-brainer, absolutely. Vote to, I'm assuming Gus, you're good down there, yes?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, vote to approve the request for the 9th Annual Hunters Run 5K and 1 Mile Fun Run.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you second that? Not
I
fast
never
enough.
Oh, I
heard
thought
the
he did.
motion, but if there was a motion, I would have seconded it.
There was a motion.
So I'll vote
Here. Next, number 11, vote to sign the state 911 Department Training Grant fiscal year 2024 application. Frank, are you going to tell us about this?
Sure. So this is a grant program that the police department has worked with for the past at least 3 or 4, maybe even closer to 5 years. It basically offers reimbursement for dispatch training. You're all probably very familiar with it, so if I'm providing more information than you need, then we can move on. But I think the focus in the past has been on cross-training officers on emergency management, dispatch, and things like that. But if there's anything specific, I'm happy to follow up with the chief.
No, this is pretty straightforward.
And sorry, Gus.
No, I was going to say, the thing I found interesting about the grant is actually the bulk of the money is to pay for the people's time,
Yeah.
not the actual registration for the event. So it's kind of nice the grant is picking up the labor cost that is associated with it.
And just one small administrative thing. Christine is actually listed as the authorized signatory with the State Department, the state agency that runs the grant program. So when we motion, I think it'd be best to vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the state 911 department training grant, so on and so forth.
Okay, do you want to make a motion, Eileen?
All right, so motion to vote to sign the State 911 Department Training Grant fiscal year 2024 application, as well as authorizing the town administrator to sign the contract?
The application, yeah. either
Application,
way.
excuse me.
Yep, no, that's fine.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 12, vote to accept Council on Aging's gift from the American Legion Beckwith Post 110 in the amount of $400.
So as we continue to try and formalize policies and procedures across the board, this came up recently. The select board should actually be accepting gifts on behalf of all town departments. So you'll be seeing these on your agendas moving forward as they come up. We're actually going to be holding on the second one for Parks and Recreation. Just waiting for a few details to be final there. But in the future, you'll see the department. Typically, the person who's making the award, I guess there is a chance that that person could remain anonymous or opt not to be identified. The amount, and then also if there are any restrictions on the use of the gift. In this case, there are no such restrictions.
Okay. Motion?
Yes, please.
All right, to vote to accept the Council on Aging gift from the American Legion Beckwith Post 110 in the amount of $400.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then
13.
consent agenda. We have a request from the Friends of the Medfield High School Theater Society to place sandwich boards in the usual locations advertising the spring play from February 16th through March 1.
And I think Brittany had sent around.
That's the
Brittany
update.
or-
We did read, he read the update.
Okay.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm overly
We're with you.
eager.
We took care of that before the meeting.
Just as a side comment, if you notice the main intersection between North Street and 109, the signs on that corner are starting to look like a little fortress there. There's so many signs we've approved that they're solid. Yeah.
Where you want to hang if you have a snowball fight, you can hide, you got a lot to hide
Yeah,
behind.
it's a,
I always
it's a
wonder
pretty
if
big pile.
if they've all been approved myself.
I'm not sure about that.
All right, so a motion on that one?
I'll have to stop and read them if they're read. Okay. Second.
Uh,
Did you not?
I didn't motion yet.
By the way.
Motion to approve the request from the Friends of Medfield High School Theater Society to place sandwich boards on the usual locations advertising the spring play from February 16th to March 1st.
February 26th through March 1st, or 11th, excuse me, right?
Yeah, the update was February 16th through March 1st.
Oh. Wrong one?
Yeah, the stapled one is wrong. The handout that Brittany gave us is the update.
All right. Okay, I stand corrected and second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
No meeting minutes. Wow. Love that.
Let's see, town administrator updates, Frank?
Just one small thing from our town clerk. Just a reminder, nomination papers are available from the town clerk's office starting on December 15th. They are due back by February 5th at 5 p.m. And then just as a general reminder, annual town election is March 25th, 2024. That's all I got.
No postcards from abroad?
None yet. None yet.
Gus, do you have any?
Just a couple things. Wednesday, November 29th, I tuned in for the Mass Municipal Association webinar on form of government, which was actually pretty good. I'll forward the recordings to the two of you. It's basically...
I was there too.
You were there too, okay, so you saw it. It's an interesting discussion because it's a lot of other towns that have gone from open town meeting to representative town meeting, or they've got to town council. So it's just interesting to listen to the considerations they had. The one thing that I took from it that I didn't know that was interesting, this was before you got on the board, Eileen, but you may recall a couple of years ago, Pete, we were entertaining the question of whether the town clerk should be appointed rather than elected. That never came to anything. We kept with it as being elected, but there apparently is a provision in the state laws that allow a town, by town meeting action, to grant tenure to a town clerk. So the town, in that circumstance, the town clerk would be elected, but if the town was happy enough with that town clerk, the recognition that there's skills and knowledge town clerks need to have. So it's not just a matter of finding somebody out on the street who happens to live in town that can be your town clerk. You can grant tenure, and according to what they said, that's good until, at their option, I guess, they can stay there until they're 70.
Wow.
So there was an interesting conversation around the challenges of trying the kinds of talent that you need to fill town positions in today's modern world. A lot of the bias that towns had in the past, include Medfield, that says, "Oh, we want to hire people from in town," and if you're going to elect them, that's where the pool is,
Right?
Because they're the only ones who can run for town office. So some of the push. The other towns, from hearing the speakers, my impression, it was Pete, you may have heard it differently, but there are some towns that are not as far along in having appointed positions as we are. So some, like there was one town that they didn't have a director of DPW. They actually had an elected position of
Yeah, it was amazing
director of
that they-
highways or something. Yeah, and so some of them were moving from elected office to appointed office, but I think they've got a lot more elected offices than we do. But I thought it was an interesting webinar. So that was one. Then last night we were all at the session around the economic development of the industrial extensive zone, which was an interesting discussion.
Nice turnout.
And then this afternoon, I'm the designated representative for the MBTA Advisory Council. So every town that has even an indirect relationship with the MBTA like we do has a representative. And I've been trying to tune in for those. We are kind of in the second ring in terms of interest, because you got people complaining about where their bus stops are and stuff like that. But it was an interesting discussion. They have a new chief operating officer who's come up through, they said he's actually an engineer. He said sometimes to maintain his currency, he actually takes the train down to think he goes to King, he lives South Shore, so he actually is the guy driving the train to Kingston to maintain his currency. So it was a interesting discussion, mostly a lot of complaints from people that weren't getting things they wanted the MBTA to do. And the MBTA is going through a process of trying to revitalize things. So it's sort of interesting to hear what they're up to. And I'm waiting to see when the financial crunch really starts rearing its head.
That new guy that's running the MBTA seems pretty
Brian
impressive.
Kane? Yeah, he's a good guy. Seems like he's good. That's it.
Eileen?
All right, so I too sat in the planning session last night. Nice turnout, good discussion, did a little exercise to draw ideas and comments from neighbors and community members. Attended the memo tree lighting, which nice turnout. Mother Nature messed with us a little bit, but not too bad. But it was fun. I bumped into Katie from Park and Rec, and she told me that they did over 350 s'mores. Great turnout. Jean, I'm assuming you had a good turnout. So it was all, I've heard a lot of good feedback, so all good. And then we were all in the parade on Saturday. Weather cooperated, so that was nice. And then I unfortunately couldn't do the Angel Run this past Sunday, but I hope that all went well. Good. But it's always a fun weekend in Medfield right now as everyone gets ready for the holidays. So that is all I've done in the last week.
So the Angel Run had very bad weather, but over 400 people showed up, I think, so that was good. And it was so nice. Evan Weisenfeld, the former president of the Medfield Foundation, and his wife Sue, even though they don't live in town anymore, came back and ran, and he sent Evan's very technologically adept. He sent some sort of picture and talking about how he really didn't want to come, but when he did, it was really fun.
Oh, good. That's good. I took my mom to a play in the theater, so I get a chance to run.
So a successful event. And Jean, your holiday stroll is just, it's getting to be very
It's awesome.
large. It's congratulations, it's working. And I heard someone, was it Rich, Susan and Rich from the church? He said that she is like the best singer-songwriter in Boston or something. She was excellent. I can't remember her name now, but she was just, say it again?
Jill McCracken.
Jill McCracken, for those at home, and she was great. She was the last act, and she was fabulous. Let's see. The MAPC and land use joint meeting on the industrial extensive zone had maybe 40, 50 people show up, which I thought was way more than I expected. So that was good that they got turnouts. A lot of them were neighbors. I saw a man at one table with a Sam White's shirt, and people were saying, "Oh, I live here," and so there was a lot of people are interested in what's going on in their neighborhood. Clearly,
Potentially in their backyard, as they say.
yep. I went to the MMA legislative update, and I guess the big news there is that the revenue's down after being up for a couple of years, so that isn't good. They're putting out more money, however, so that's good. Revenue forecast for FY '25 is down almost 3%, unfortunately. So, I had office hours, and I was just busy at my office hours. They couldn't get there. They wanted to come, so that was good that that's available. Last night, the Medfield Foundation Legacy Fund held a evening for have their grantees come and report back with what they've done with the monies. It was held over at the Zulu, and apparently that went well. Although since I was at the MAPC, I missed most of it. So, and that's it for me. Do we have a motion to adjourn then?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for
All right.
coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, right on time at 9 o'clock, but actually 5 minutes slow. So.
Think about it, it'd be 10 o'clock if
I know.
we didn't start at 6. There's a perk to the 6 o'clock
Yep,
gig.
yep.